then actually the chances are greater that they're conservative, and they're just saying, hey, I'm not going to say anything, and then that way my career will continue to go on. And that's the sad reality of things. But you get to like Bruce Willis level or Clint Eastwood level, and they've come out, they're conservatives, but they have enough money. It's Gavin McInnes, he refers to it as FU money. And Clint Eastwood has his own production company. He writes, produces, directs. FU to the whole. I don't care if you guys don't like it. I'm still going to make movies. I'm going to direct them. I'm going to star in them. Or I'm going to. Bottom line is he doesn't need anybody, right?
Right. He's the point is that he's still in the business and he's surrounded by leftist crazies. But he calls it FU money because it's just like
I can do it. I don't need. I'll do it myself. And Bruce Willis is Bruce Willis, and he doesn't need to work anymore if he doesn't want to. So he's got the FU money, but there's a lot of stars that don't have that level of security, so they're quiet.
Right.
And then the ones who are drunk on, and I saw an episode of South Park where they're like farting into wine glasses and then smelling their own farts, right? And you get that level of I am so wonderful and everything I do, and I'm a genius. I must be a genius. And then they're the ones that are going off to saying bat crap crazy stuff. And they're, hey, share, live long and be happy. I don't have to watch any of your stuff. I don't have to pay for any of the things. I choose not, I can't. The wolf. Did you see what Barbara Streisand said the other day about Michael Jackson?
Something to the effect of like the boys wanted to be there.
The boys were having a good time, and in the final analysis, they didn't die from the experience. So what are they complaining about, right? And okay, that's one take. That's one interpretation of what happened there. And
Owen Benjamin thinks he's completely innocent.
Does he really?
Yeah, dude, his streams are so hilarious. He just goes off, and he's got some serious deep knowledge on some things. But
yeah,
he's just talking about how like Michael, and anyway, he's just dealing with some like a lot. There was a lot of backlash going against him and for things because he was. I mean, he claims to have known some things, and so that's how Michael was destroyed. Anyway, he just
what do you think?
What do you think?
I think one of the Corey Feldman. There was the two Corys, and one of them is dead. And the Corey that's still alive now, he was part of the Michael Jackson entourage.
Oh, he was. I didn't know.
Yeah, yeah, and he swears up and down, and he's vocal. He talks. He does.
He exposes. He does talk about.
Well, he talks about it, but he says I can't talk about who it was because they're too powerful. But he said his famous quote is, "The number one problem with Hollywood has been, is today, and always will be pedophilia."
Yeah.
And he rages against it. He comes out and says, "I was a victim of it. So was the other Corey, and that's why he died young because he couldn't handle. The drug use was to cope with the abuse that happened in his youth." Blah 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 blah. Feldman says Michael Jackson didn't do anything inappropriate.
Interesting.
So maybe not.
See,
but I don't know, right? For sure, we could say Michael Jackson was a strange cat, right? Yeah. And Owen Benjamin, he came out and went bonkers against Bono. Did you see his? He has like a 2-hour thing on how Bono's the devil.
Hello? Yeah, I saw his whole thing on Bono. It was I don't know. I mean, are you a diehard Bono fan? Are you a guy who's...
No, I can honestly say I was never really a big U2 fan, and I am a teenager of the '80s.
Yeah.
We're just talking about this stuff, and so.
I mean, U2 was one of the bands that were definitely more overrated than. In my experience,
but YouTube. I mean, he goes in depth. He breaks down the.
So I can hear him talk to.
Well, Rebecca wants to hear.
Can't hear you guys anymore. Can you hear me?
Don't touch anything.
Turn it down some.
No, don't turn it down.
Aw.
Can you hear us now?
Yeah.
Okay. So it is my headphones working for the microphone, so that's great. So in the final analysis, Owen Benjamin breaks down the cover of that album Boy, and he
Yeah. I saw that. I watched the whole thing.
I thought it was compelling. I thought it was compelling. And
and it's like none of us realized any of that before, and he's just pointing out stuff that's like in plain sight, stuff that's like, I mean, apparently he was just a random dude that they found in the neighborhood, and it's just, I mean, it is. I mean, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but it's just, and he goes through pointing out how he and Trudeau are like buds, and anyway, it's.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I saw a thing on Brian Epstein. That's some disturbing stuff. Brian Epstein.
Brian Adams.
Brian Epstein.
I don't know who that is.
He had in the Caribbean, and many politicians it was flying his private plane to an island. It was called the Lolita Express.
Oh yeah.
And Bill Clinton was on there 12 times or so, and each time without his Secret Service entourage. So, just that was a very, very, very disturbing can of worms to go into. But what do you want to do? What do you want to do?
So it was just really impromptu for me. I didn't have anything planned. I know that you sent me a PowerPoint thing. Do I need to review that first, or do you want to just try to jump into it? Is it easy to follow? Is it something that I need to be, because I haven't done any homework, and I'm sorry.
It is a presentation from the history of Israel from before recorded time to now, and so each present slide is a map or something to talk about.
Hey Ben, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Have you seen a little TV show called Knock Knock Ghost?
I have not.
Please tell me about it.
It's on Prime, and it's these two Canadian dudes going to investigate haunted houses. And
okay. That's kind of the thing that you want to do, right, Becca?
Yeah. So
that's fun. That's cool. I've been to a lot of crazy places. Like growing up in Jersey, where we grew up, holy cow, there were every house that you're in, all the old houses, like those houses, all of them had secret passageways. They all had like weird, laundry chutes that were just weird, kind of tucked away places, and just weird secret passageways. And that was one of my favorite things as a kid, was secret passageways. Ooh, a secret passageway.
So cool.
Something that we just, anyway. But me and Nathan and Pete and we all enjoyed those as kids.
What were the laundry chutes like?
Well, they're different styles. So you have one that's like just straight down, and then you have the kind that has like the thing that you sit in, the little compartment that you sit in, and then you can ride down it. if you're not too big. I mean, I'm sure we couldn't now, but when we were kids, someone who's small enough could fit inside, and then they ride down it. So that's all that we saw. But typically they were just weird ones. Like you'd have like closets that were really large, but they would have these big. I remember when we first moved to New Jersey, when I was a little kid, we moved into a place called in West Orange, New Jersey, and there was a giant. We were just renting the house, just staying there. And I remember this giant closet that was had a big curved back of the back wall, and then there was a door inside of that, but you had to kind of push it open from the side. And anyway, yeah, it's just makes you wonder what kind of history that thing had. So
wait, do you watch YouTube sometimes?
What?
Do you watch YouTube sometimes?
Do I watch YouTube? Yes.
If you go on YouTube and search up a guy named Exploring with Josh, you'll find he went to this he actually found Michael Jackson's birthplace.
He
And
goes to Michael Jackson's the hospital that Michael Jackson was born at, and it is
Oh wow.
it's dilapidated and it's a freak show because it's
Oh wow.
inner city Detroit, and it's just
he
it's a
goes
freak
like
show.
other places. He has like friends go to like other places like asylums and stuff like that, and they're so funny. And that's what I want to go to, like find an asylums and like explore them. And there is a such thing as a abandoned old asylum hospitals that I want to try and find, but if my dad's okay with it,
Someday.
someday, yeah, one of these days. But
And then for your YouTube channel, when you interview people, you could interview them while you're in a straitjacket. You could wear a straitjacket, and then just like have a mic like sticking out and be like, yeah. So just talking to this mic, and just so you just be like, so what do you think about the blah 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 blah? Yeah, just that'd be kind of funny.
Jacket. That's what we'll call it. A Becca in a jacket.
No, a panda in a jacket.
Panda in a jacket. Yeah.
That'd be pretty funny.
Yeah. What has something interesting happened in your life? What is something interesting that happened in your life?
Well, Ben was on TED Talks in Provo.
TED Talk? That's so
Yeah.
cool.
I did a TED Talks in Provo last Tuesday. Yeah, just a week ago.
Oh, that's so
And
cool.
what was the topic?
It was a lot of different things. They talked about poverty, but they also talked about like I mean the main thing was kind of like how you plan your experiences and how you plan your routines, how you plan your execution of those routines, how you plan. There's a lot about planning, but essentially, I mean there were like 6 or 7 different speakers, and so they all had a very interesting take and some interesting stories. My favorite was an Irish guy, and he talked about the strength of delivery of speech and how important that is to be confident in what you're doing, everything that you're doing, not to apologize too much. He was just very gung-ho on the whole just being yourself and everything. Anyway, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he was my favorite. I can't remember. It's Craig something, and I'll have to go back and find out who it was for you. Remember but anyway, he was really a good Irish guy. Really, he was my favorite speaker.
Well, hold on. So hold on. The formed with what was the message?
I'm sorry, I couldn't. You cut out. Go one more time.
What was the formed with? What was the message? Is that
So the mic is cutting in and out. But no, just like maybe unplug it, plug it back in, see if that helps.
Oof.
Say it again. What were you saying before?
Is it working now?
Yeah, it's working now. Go ahead.
All right, so Becca, you're gonna have to just listen in.
No, wait. We'll go ahead. We'll turn.
Yeah.
Were you just using the computer mic?
No, yeah, I was using the headset mic here.
Okay.
So what was the guy you performed with? What was his message?
He had some really cool things to say. He talked about dude, I can't remember any of these, man. Oh my gosh. They were all so such huge topics. There was one where he was a singer-songwriter, and so he talked about music and the power of music, and then he talked about the power of youth. So we talked about like his kids and how they were great, and then how they kind of capture a lot of knowledge and how they're a lot smarter than people give them credit for. And talked about kids and like the absorption of youth and how young people are able to absorb things so easily and to not discount them, etc. So it's stuff like that. I mean, it was really great. I wish I had taken notes. My mom, Barbara, came and she took notes, so she would probably be able to tell you better. maybe we should get her on this and ask her. But she was able to. She took really good notes. But yeah, Can you hear me? Okay.
I can. That was
okay.
Answer the phone.
Okay. So all right. So anyway, we've been going live this whole time. I'm sorry. But so I mean, so forgive me. So I mean, I would love to talk about. I mean, right now with like we could talk about the collusion. I mean, that's just obvious stuff. But I mean, do you have any specific insight on that, or do you have any specific opinions on what you think about that?
You know, up to the election, I was up to speed on every topic, all day, every day.
Mm-hmm.
Ready, willing, and able to debate any Hillary supporter on anything that they would want to talk about. And the goal was, as Shapiro points out, to not just defeat the person you're engaging, but I mean, utterly crush them, so people listening to the exchange will realize that the pro-Hillary position is just a fool's paradise.
Yeah.
So I say all that to the election came, it was over, she lost, Trump won, and I sort of just I unplugged. For over a year, I wasn't listening to anything or anything. But it was a matter of hours after Trump won that they started talking about, well, something had to have happened, and then the whole and here's the bits and pieces I remember. Trump was.
Do we want to turn off our camera? Let's turn off the cameras.
Okay. Well, I thought it was kind of too late now.
Yeah. Well, the last stream we did, we only have like 45 views, so it's like. It's just hard. It's just there's a lot of stuff we have to do with algorithms, and so what I just have to do an edit. I just have to do one of our videos and do an edit and do a short edit with video. So it's one of those things that just I have to. Anyway,
you'd be better off stopping this and starting a new one.
No, because I can. It doesn't because we.
Doesn't
matter. Go ahead.
That's fine. So in the final analysis, I mean, it started with. Rumors coming out that Trump was under surveillance. You know, Trump made a statement that he was being wiretapped, and then.
But who started? I mean, it was started by Obama, though, right?
Well, that's so. It all started with Trump saying, "Hey, I've been wiretapped," and then the mainstream media, he's paranoid, yada yada yada. Well, no, it turns out he was under a wiretap. They tapped the Trump towers. They tapped into his cell phones, and so it's called they got a FISA search warrant. FISA is, hey, we're going to tap into all the electronics, your emails, your telephone, your cell phone, because we think that there's probable cause, and we went to a FISA judge, and he signed off on it. And what it all boils down to is the proof that was used to the judge saying, hey, there's reasonable cause to go down this road, was the Steele report. And the Steele report, this guy, I think is Michael Steele is his name. He's an ex-MI6 operative. I don't know that he was an actual James Bond. He was probably more of a money petty, behind the scenes desk jockey. Yeah. And he had contacts, this other. He drafted up a report, and this is where the golden showers comes in. And it was just a left-wing wet dream on how horrible Donald Trump is and how he's not fit to be president. And it turns out it was paid for by a law company that was receiving heavy money from Hillary to do opposition research. So for all intents and purposes, Hillary was reaching out to a foreign operative to get the goods on Donald Trump that turned out to be completely false. Now jumping forward to today, right now, the Democrats are saying, well, release the entire report, not just a 2-page summary of the report. Release the entire report. To which I say, absolutely, yeah. And by the way, Trump said the same thing. Really, I've got nothing to hide. Release the report. And not just that, I want everything released. I want the evidence that was used for the FISA search warrants. And then let's start backtracking on that, because it's an abuse of power. And this goes to the Obama Department of Justice, the FBI under Obama. They completely, it was a high-tech attempt of a coup. They were trying to overthrow the sitting president with manufactured evidence, and evidence that was touted for 2 years. I mean, I remember going into work. We have got a big flat screen TV, and the news is going all day, every day. Walking in, it's a bombshell. This is devastating. Trump's going to have to resign. And it was some BuzzFeed news story that turned out to be a complete hoax also.
I remember that. The bombshell. That was such a funny thing too. So many great YouTube videos had used that bombshell, and I mean, it's like all the networks use that same stupid word
every day. My point being, it's been for the past 2 years, people speculating on this guy, Brennan. What's his face? But he was a CIA director under Obama. He's coming out. Oh, I have special information, and it's going to go down. It's going to go down hard, and blah blah blah. And it's been 2 years and how many months, how many millions of dollars, and there's nothing. There's now that there's 16 indictments, but the indictments are all process crimes. For example, here's a process crime for those who are on the left who are like not understanding the big picture here. Back when George W. Bush was president, there's a guy named Valerie Planum. Valerie, what's her face? I'm shooting from the hip here. She was worked for the CIA, and she got outed. And so someone in the Bush team outed her, and they had to have a huge.
What was her name again? I'm sorry. Can you say her name again? Who was it?
Valerie Planum. I can't. I want to say PLAM, Planum, EM, Planum. Valerie is her first name for sure. If you Google it,
Valerie Plame Wilson.
CIA.
Okay.
Big scandal. Google that. But the bottom line is that the left decided that this is how they're going to get W. They're going to get him because somebody on his side spilled the beans that she was a CIA agent. You can't do that. It's against a lot of out CIA agents. Well, it was common knowledge in D.C. that she was a CIA agent, and it turns out it was a guy named Armitage. Dick Armitage was the guy who spilled the beans. But in the course of how long the special counsel went, Scooter Libby got tagged with making inconsistent statements. This is what he was charged with. Inconsistent. There you go. Valerie Plame. Oh, Wilson, her husband. And inconsistent statements to the FBI, which he said it could have been something as little as, oh yeah, I talked to her on Tuesday, or I talked to that guy on Wednesday, and then they came back and said, well, no, it was more like Friday. Oh yeah, I guess it was Friday. Whatever he did, he didn't spill the beans on Valerie. Again, nobody on the Bush team spilled the beans on Valerie, but that special counsel walked away. Their biggest scalp they collected was putting Scooter Libby in jail for making inconsistent statements to the FBI. It's called a process crime. During the process of the investigation, Scooter Libby broke rules, made inconsistent statements to the FBI, and he got penalized. So of the 16 indictments that Mueller has in the last 2 years, so you've got Cohen, the Trump's former lawyer. Yeah, they got him on some pretty good stuff, perjury and false taxes and all that stuff.
And I heard that whole thing was just such a crap show because the way that it was handled. I mean,
well, it's a crap show. He lied, so that he's going to prison because he lied. He committed perjury. Then, I think he was in North Korea. The House, the Democrats, bring him back in to show podium, and he's making all these insane statements. And he starts off, yes, I was a liar. I am a convicted liar. And I'm here today, and I'm not going to lie today. And he went on to say some crazy things about Trump. Well, he's a convicted liar. He's a lying, as to quote from the book title from Al Franken, he's a lying liar who lies. Real deal, going to prison. But that's the best the Democrats could do on that particular day is get a self-confessed liar to come in and make crazy statements that were lies. So the whole point is what I'm driving at is of the 16 convictions that Mueller has, not a single one, not one is tied to some guy doing dealings with the Russians. So it's
right.
He went up, and this is the part that I'm not real big fan of special counsel. Now, again, you can come up with extreme circumstances that would justify it. For example, well, let's stay on track. For 2 years, Mueller was for all intents and purposes, he was on a fishing expedition. He was looking for anything and everything. Again, his mandate is to find out if there's any collusion between Trump and the Russians, and he goes into a closet, lights are out, and he's there for 2 years, and he comes out with some guy didn't pay his taxes, another guy didn't pay his taxes, another person's a liar, but nothing under his original mandate, right? Now, honestly, it's the best policy. I honestly forgot what Ken Starr was. I think Ken Starr was a special counsel investigating President Bill Clinton. This is during the late 90s. I believe his special counsel started off when he was looking into Whitewater, which was a complex land deal that the Clintons were a part of, and they ripped off a lot of old ladies and old men, old couples, people who invested into the Whitewater land speculation, and they lost a lot of their funds. And everyone lost money except for the Clintons and their close friends. Everybody, all the little people lost money, but the Clintons made out pretty darn well. So there was, hey, something may have gone on here when Bill was a governor, and so they had a special counsel. Now, in the course of Ken Starr doing the special counsel, Bill Clinton was being sued for sexual harassment by Paula Jones. Paula Jones? Was that her name? I think it's Paula Jones. Paula, for sure, her last name, I think it was Jones. And she's suing him because while he was governor, there was a convention that she was at, and she was told to go meet Governor Clinton Paula Jones. There she is. She goes into a hotel room, and there's Bill Clinton with his pants down, and he basically says to her, he says, I know your boss, give me a blowjob, BJ Clinton, right? And she's like, I don't like this. And Clinton point blank said, I know your boss. You like your job? Do you want to keep your job? Service me. And then she ran out crying. And so now that's a classic example of real deal in your face sexual harassment.
Yeah.
And by the way, Clinton winds up settling out of court. He gives her $900,000. I don't know any innocent man who would say, "Oh, well, I'm just going to give this gal $900,000 to go away." But during the course of the if you sue someone, or if you're suing someone, or if you're taken to court, you have what's called discovery, where you get to know what their evidence is, and the other side gets to know what your evidence is, so both lawyers know all sides of the evidence so they can prepare their cases. So during the course of discovery, Paula Jones's lawyers are interviewing members of the White House staff to see if Bill Clinton's behaviors are consistent to the way he was as governor. Because their case is, this isn't just a one-off thing. The guy's a predatory sexual creature, and chances are he's up to the same shenanigans as president. So her lawyers are asking people in the White House, have you ever observed Clinton putting the moves on somebody, using the power of the presidency? And this is where Linda Tripp comes in and said, oh, are you asking if I've seen that? Damn right I have. And her name is Monica Lewinsky, and President Clinton. And so then that kind of got out, and then Bill Clinton starts walking around telling everyone in the office if you're asked these questions by Paula Jones's counsel, to lie. Tell them you haven't seen anything, you haven't heard anything, there's nothing there, it's a nothing burger, go away, right? Now that's a crime. That's a felony. You're subordinating perjury. You're asking someone to lie for you while they're giving testimony under oath. That's a federal law that Clinton was breaking. Now, Starr wasn't looking for it, but it comes across he's got this ball. He's like, my mandate isn't supposed to cover this, but I know about this. So he went to a 3-judge panel and said, in the course of my investigation of Whitewater, this came across my purview. I now know about this. What should I do? And the 3-judge panel said, this is significant. We are going to expand your special counsel discovery to now look into this. And the digging, and more denying, and it turns out Monica Lewinsky, while servicing the president in the Oval Office, had, we'll just say, presidential DNA spilled on her dress. She went home, and instead of cleaning it with the cleaner, she decided to keep it as a keepsake. That I have presidential DNA on this dress, and it's mine, and it's my keepsake for my years working in the White House. Starr finds out about that, gets the dress, and at that point, the cat's out of the bag. We have DNA evidence tying the president and sexual behaviors with Monica Lewinsky. Now, my whole point of telling that story is none of that happened with Mueller. Mueller wasn't going along and then said, "Oh, during the course of my discovery with Russia, I came across these other things." What he was doing, in my humble opinion, and I think the evidence bears it out, is he was looking for anything that he could on any of Trump's subordinates, and then once he found something, he went and said, "You will testify that Trump colluded, otherwise you're going to go down for," in Michael Cohen's case, your taxes and your point blank lying, your perjury. But Cohen, I guess with some ethics there, is like, well, okay, I'll tell you everything I know, and everything you know had nothing to do with the Russians. Same with Manafort. Get this old 70-some-year-old guy, and the FBI show up to his house 6 o'clock in the morning in full tactical gear and raid his house as if he was Pablo Escobar. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Absolutely insane. Absolute intimidation tactics. Absolute abuse of power. What Mueller tried for the last 2 years was Stalin-esque in regards to show me the man and I will find the crime, right? He went there with a mandate looking for collusion with the Russians. He got 16 people in an uncomfortable spot and nothing. Even with those pressure, I'm going to get you on processing, I'm going to get you on stuff you did in the 90s where Trump was thinking about running for president. I'm going to get you on these points. He has absolutely nothing. Every single person, from elected Democrat officials, Nancy Pelosi, and the rest of the gang, to every single so-called journalist who has been hyping this for the past 2 years. Well, the journalists should resign. They've crossed the line. They've proved they're not journalists. They don't care about facts. And for the past years, we've had these undisclosed sources. My secret source this, my secret source that says, again, this is it. Trump's not going to finish out his last term, blah, 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 blah. And it's all, Alex Jones has been completely and totally deplatformed for less.
Yeah.
By the way, again, I don't live and breathe by Alex Jones. I think Place Point has some hilarious songs with Alex Jones, and I think Alex Jones is an American, and he has the right to say whatever he wants.
I love Alex Jones.
But in the final analysis, he backed down on the Sandy Hook shootings was a hoax, a false flag, and he apologized for it. Now, no one in the mainstream media has apologized for the past 2 years of trying to whip the nation into a frenzy, trying to whip the Democratic base into, at minimum, we have to have an impeachment, and if the worst comes to worst, we've got to march on the White House with our pitchforks because Orange Man bad.
Yeah.
It's an absolute travesty of justice, because innocent until proven guilty, gone out the window. And again, they hyped it and hyped it and hyped it, and there's nothing there. Absolutely nothing there.
And it's like we all knew this, and it was just something that was so obvious that it wasn't, that it was hollow. And every single time you heard CNN pretend to be, hot on the trail of this thing, it was just something that, it's like you could tell just from hearing them talk, it was so hollow. Every single accusation, every single time that they would talk about it, just complete hollow accusations with absolutely nothing to go on. And meanwhile, he's doing awesome things for the country. So,
and on that note, I have friends who were never Trumpers, and of the ones I'm talking to, about it's half and half. Half of my Never Trumper friends are actually feeling bad they didn't vote for him the first time.
Really?
They are
Really
can't wait to undo the wrong and vote for him again. Or
wow.
Not again, but vote for him this time around because they're realizing and again, so the Never Trumpers I knew, their number one problem was he's morally flawed. He's a philanderer. He's an adulterer, a businessman. He doesn't pay his vendors in full. He's just a slimy guy, and how could we have such a person as president? And in 2016, my response to them is, you're absolutely correct. He is a philanderer. He has had sex with many women, not his wives. He's had sex with women while he was married that weren't his wife. His second wife, I forget her name, but he dumped his current wife and married her, and she was his mistress, and she married her, and then he wound, I think that's Ivanka's mom, and then he wound up dumping her, and he's married to Milana now, and for any heterosexual guy, it's like there's no mystery to that of why he's married to Milana. She's a beautiful woman, and
and CNN hates her. CNN hates her.
You know, which is a side note there, which is absolutely astounding because she's living the American dream. She's from Slovenia or somewhere, right? She speaks how many 5 languages or so? English is not her first language. She is the poster girl of the American dream. And how dare they be mean? Well, anyways, my point being is, going back in 2016, I would say to my Never Trumper friends is, you're absolutely right. He's a philanderer. I would rather have a philanderer as a president than a rapist, or worse yet, an enabler of a rapist. And Hillary, going back to we talked about Paula Jones, Hillary and her ilk were saying, well, when Paula Jones was making the news, said, well, just drag a $20 bill through a trailer park, and the likes of her will come out. Hillary was maligning the character of a woman who was sexually harassed by her husband. She tried to character design her. Jennifer Flowers, the same thing. Longtime mistress. Everybody knew it. And the Hillary-led team, back in the 90s, you were pretty young in the 90s, they were referred to as the Bimbo Eruption Team. They're go out there, find the target, assassinate them in a character kind of way. You can't trust her. She's a crazy woman. Bill looked at her and winked at her, and she thought they had a relationship for the past 15 years. She's crazy. Have you seen the movie Fatal Attraction? Boom, Jennifer Flowers. She's just, except for the actual sex thing, because that wouldn't have happened, because Bill's not, he would never do such a thing. And so my point being is, you're right. Trump's a philanderer, but he's honest about it. He's open about it, and he never raped anybody. And then you go, well, he has shady business practices. You're right. Maybe he did. My first response to that was, are there business people that are not happy with the transactions that they've done with Trump? You bet there are. Now, is that a crime? Is that against the law? Well, if he had broken the law, they would have had him in there for fraud or whatnot. So I'm not saying that he's the best business guy in the world, but if he's working within the bounds of the law, maybe the laws need to be changed, right? But my point being there is, he did what he did in the private sector. He didn't do what he did with the power of the state behind him, like the Clintons do. The deals, like, for example, Whitewater, shady deal across the board, and Bill profited because he was governor of Arkansas. And the Arkansas Savings and Loans, huge amounts of money made there. People made money, people lost money, but Bill and his friends, Governor Bill Clinton and his friends in power, they're the ones making the money. Other people losing money. There's no debate at all. Now that the Clintons are out of power, everyone across the board will say, "Oh yeah, well they refer to them as grifters. They're corrupt grifters." And the Clinton Foundation was nothing more than a slush fund to take bribes, to get political influence. And then once they were out of in between, when Hillary's senator or whatnot, they had the Haiti fund. You Google up the Clinton fund and the Haiti earthquake, right?
Yep, I know all about that.
Yeah, massive corruption. And the point being is, they did it while in office, while exerting political influence. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton signed off on the uranium deal, and lo and behold, Bill Clinton goes off to Moscow and gives a $500,000 speech, right? And I'm supposed to say, oh, there's no connection at all. She just happens to hand over the majority of the uranium being produced in North America to the Russians. And oh, by the way, so my point being is everything you could say about Trump, you could say the same, but only worse, longer, and the power of the state behind them, the Clintons were up to it. So that was what I was talking about. So the point I'm driving at is now I've got two sets of never Trumpers. One who are like, I'm going to vote for him in 2020, and the other ones who are still dug their heels in the ground. He is a morally bad person, and he's a bore. To which I say, fine, he's a bore. He tweets at 2:00 in the morning, and he's gruff, and he might even be crass. It doesn't bother me that he's a bore. Assuming he's a bore to begin with, I don't sit here and rank people. Are they bores?
I don't think he is.
Right? But the going back to, they're still got their heels stuck into the ground that he's a morally flawed man. Yes, he's an adulterer. Yes, he's crass. To which I say, as president of the United States, Donald Trump, a flawed man, a serial adulterizer again and again and again, who worst we could say of him is late in his life he bags himself a trophy wife, and even if everything is true, and I'm just assuming everything is true, while Melania was pregnant with Barron Trump, he's out getting busy with Stormy Daniels, giving her $100,000 for that, right? Fine, say all of that's true. As president, Donald Trump has done more good for the country and the world than Mitt Romney. And why is that? Why is that? And so for those who don't know, Mitt Romney, he was a Mormon bishop and a Mormon state president. And what that means is this man dedicated free time, 40 plus hours a week, to counsel people in a spiritual sense, to do service for his congregants. For those who don't know, a Mormon bishop, it's the equivalent of being like a pastor or a bishop in the Catholic Church. To be a stake president is to be like unto a bishop. You oversee several parishes. To be a bishop is like a father. You're over a parish. It's a full-time job. It's 40 hours a week. And it's not, you don't get paid for it. You don't get paid bupkis. So as a Mormon bishop, you have to have your job that pays the bills. And then on top of that, you're putting 40 hours in serving your community, your religious community. And the minimum gig is for, and oh, by the way, you don't seek it, you don't ask for the job, you get appointed to the job, and then you once you have that job, you have it for 5 to 7, 9 years. It can run anywhere from 5 to 9 years. It's not a small thing. It's a very big thing. And the point that we're driving at here is Mitt Romney, a moral guy. When he ran for Senate against Ted Kennedy, Ted Kennedy's opposition, they went out there trying to find the skinny on Mitt Romney. And all they could find, and I lie to you not, all they could find against Mitt Romney was the guy that Mitt hires to cut his grass, that guy hires illegal aliens. And if the stories are true, when the research team, opposition research team, came in and told that to Ted Kennedy, he was incredulous. He's like, "You've got to be kidding me! This guy's a self-made millionaire. He's got millions. You're not telling me? Go find the bimbo. Go find the mistress. Go find out what his liquor tab is. He's got to be a drinker. He's got to be nailing chicks on the side. He's a self-made Kennedy. Don't give me this crap." And they go, "No, that's it. That's all that we." Oh, here's some inside stuff they found. So, well, this is the kind of guy Mitt is. Mitt, as governor, he's doing a tour, and the state cut back a budget. So he's doing a tour of a VA hospital, and they said, "Our budget got cut. We used to get fresh milk delivered from a dairy down the way, and we had to." No, I'm sorry, he wasn't governor. He was Citizen Mitt. Citizen Mitt went on a tour, went to a VA hospital, found out their budget got cut. They're not getting milk the way they're supposed to be. Well, lo and behold, a couple days after Mitt was there, milk starts showing up. And the VA's like, "Oh, we can't pay for this." They said, "Don't worry about it. Mitt Romney's flipping the bill. He's compensating your milk budget. He's buying milk out of his own pocket. That's the kind of stuff. And he didn't ask for it. And he didn't ever wanted to know it. It popped out, I believe, because it was opposition research. Like, well, Ted, here's the secrets of Mitt Romney. He's secretly giving milk to the VA because they lost their milk budget, right? And my point being is, the country will never have another ethically clean, morally straight guy run for president ever again in the history of the country than Mitt Romney. And here's my point: Mitt Romney, who is squeaky clean, is not doing the amount of good as Donald Trump, because Mitt Romney lost. He's a loser. He lost to Obama. He could have won that first debate. He cleaned Obama's clock. And then his handlers came back and said, hey, you were too mean to Obama. You got to take it back a step. You got to be nice to him because we don't want to be seen as being mean and being caustic.
Oh, you're kidding.
Oh, I'm not kidding. And I
didn't realize that. I did not realize that.
And then from that point on, the next two debates, it was, I thought he won, but that's because I'm listening on an adult functioning IQ and understanding the economy and understanding what Obama was saying and understanding what Mitt was saying. But Mitt's message again, when he ran, I went to his rally, he would come out and say, Obama's a great husband, he's a great father, he's in over his head, right? So his message is, this guy, he's a wonderful guy, he's just in over his head. And the message from the Obama team is, Mitt Romney is a capitalist, a venture capitalist. He went out and bought companies. He bought this one company, and then it couldn't turn it around, so he sold that company. And this guy working at that company, his wife died of cancer. And she died of cancer because they lost their health care because Mitt sold the company and he lost his job. Mitt Romney murdered that man's wife. And they had the guy go on there, tell the story, and he ended it with saying, Mitt Romney killed my wife, right? So Mitt's message is, Obama's a great guy, just in over his head. And the opposition message was, Mitt's the kind of guy who will murder your wife if you give him a chance. And so people went in and they voted, and after the election, the polls were, well, who cares more? Who cares more about you as the individual voter? Well, Obama, 80% cares more. Who's more competent? Oh, Mitt. Mitt's competent, but Obama cares more. Who does he care more about? He cares more about me.
So really?
Obama won because he captured, again, to repeat myself, Time Magazine called it. This is not me. This is Time Magazine. He captured the low information voter, right? They came out in mass. They voted for Obama. And when they did the after breakdown, Time Magazine, trying to put a positive spin on this, Time Magazine said, hey, unlike any president in the past, Obama tapped into slackers who don't typically vote. I can't say that because they don't. He tapped into the low information voters. They came out in mass and they defeated Mitt Romney. And again, in the after poll accounts, it was, Mitt's more, he's got it together, but Obama cares more about me. And because of Mitt Romney, we have 4 more years of Obama. 4 more years of Obama because of Mitt Romney. So what I'm telling my never Trumper friends now is, who are all about character, I said, you gotta live in the real world. In the real world, Mitt lost. And because Mitt lost, more evil has done. Trump won. And he won because he doesn't take crap from the Democrats. If they try to say something that's I remember when they were like, hey, Trump, you've had a lot of affairs. And he was tweeted out to Hillary, you don't want to go down this road. You don't want to go down this road. And then Hillary went down that road. And so then the next day, Trump has a press conference and he has Broderick, Kathleen Willey, Paula Jones, that may have been somebody else, people who have been raped and or sexually harassed by Bill Clinton. And they all start telling their stories. Bill Clinton raped me, right? And it's like, Mitt wasn't going to do that. Mitt's not a brass knuckles fighter. And because of Mitt, we have 4 more years of Obama. Because of Trump, we don't have 4 years of Hillary. Now, what does that translate to? That translates to, and I was saying this in 2016, it's not about Trump, it's about Hillary losing, because we're going to have Supreme Court slots opening up. If Hillary had won, there'd be 2 more Democrat-appointed nuts on the court, right? We've got Neil Gorsuch and we got Brett Kavanaugh. Now Kavanaugh really hasn't come up with the rulings yet, but here's the one that I would tell my never Trumper fools is, I forget the name of the case, but the case involves the Colorado cake baker who refuses. Now, if you're gay and you walk in there and say, I want a birthday cake, he'll make it for you. I want to, I'm coming out. Okay, well, here's your coming out cake, right? What he will not do is do a wedding cake for a same-sex marriage, because he has a religious objection to same-sex marriage. And the state of Colorado was coming down hard on him, and it went all to the Supreme Court. And there's a 5-4 ruling, and 3 of the 5, Alito, Roberts, and who's Alito, Roberts, and then I forget who the third guy is. They come out and say it was Kennedy. It was Kennedy. This is before Kennedy was left. So Kennedy, they came out and said, we're going to find in favor of the cake guy because the state of Colorado was rude. And so they didn't settle the question, does Colorado have the authority to force a cake maker to make that cake? They just said, you were rude about it, so go about what you want to do, but don't be so rude about it. Now, the 2 that identified the problem correctly were Thomas and Gorsuch. They said, this is not a question of rude or not rude. This is a question of religious freedom. Does the state have the right to compel someone to do something against their religious values? For example, if you have a Jewish kosher deli and they make kosher cheesecakes, can I walk in there and say, I think it's April 21st. April 21st is Hitler's either his birthday. No, it's Bill Shakespeare's birthday, and it's the day Hitler died. So I want a birthday cake that says "Happy Birthday, Bill Shakespeare," and too bad you failed, Hitler cake. And I want it red with a white disc, and then a black swastika on top of the white disc. And the Jewish baker says, "Yeah, I don't believe I want to do that."
Yeah.
I'm crazy. I'm nuts. I believe in freedom. I believe the Jewish baker should be able to have the right to say, I choose not to make that cake.
Yeah.
And if there's a Muslim bakery and I go in there and I say, I want a big cake, I want a cake in the shape of a 6-year-old girl, and we're gonna write on it, happy birthday, Aisha, and then on the side, Muslim, Muhammad married a 6-year-old, and he waited till she was 9 before he raped her. Make me that cake. And if the Muslim baker says, I choose not to, then I think that baker has the right to say, no, I don't want to make. I want to. As an artist, I believe the artist has the ability, has the absolute say on what they. Going back to our little hand video, right? The artist has the say to do what they want to do with their time and their talents, right?
Yes.
And now going back to. Now, that was because Gorsuch replaced whoever Scalia died, right? So Gorsuch replaced Scalia. And because it was a Gorsuch, Trump put Gorsuch in that spot. Thomas, in his opinion, said, hey, religious freedom lives to fight another day. Had that been a Hillary appointment, it would have come down 5-4 saying the state absolutely has the right to protect against discrimination, and you as a cake maker, if someone asks you to make something that goes against your religious values, choke it down and do it, because you're not allowed to discriminate under any circumstances at all whatsoever. Because what it's ignoring then is, okay, so we're gonna say that A can't discriminate against B, but B can discriminate against A, and I'm all for, well, if someone wants to make the cake, then they can charge money and make the cake. And if they don't want to make the cake, go find another cake maker. That's freedom, right? You can be offended, and you don't have, you know what? You don't have to come back there and get the guy's cookies. You can say, that guy refuses to make cakes for gay weddings. I refuse to do any business with him at all whatsoever. Well, that's your choice. Go ahead. And if it gets to the point where not enough people are visiting his shop and he has to go under, well, then that's the free market saying your position's not wanted. But if enough people say, hey, I like the way you roll, and I'm going to come in here and buy your cookies, then the free market says there's enough people willing to support the guy. What's wrong with freedom, right? And,
Yeah.
and that's my point. Had Trump lost and Hillary won, there'd be not one but two Supreme Court justices that would look upon that and say, no, the state has the right to intercede there. And little things like hate speech. Well, they'd be coming down on, hey, we're gonna, it's against law to have hate speech, which is fine as long as I'm the one getting to define what hate speech is. But if someone who has the same mindset as Hillary is criticizing Hillary as her being a president, how she's discharging her responsibilities as being a president, is that hate speech? Right? Well, look at what the EU's doing. They're coming down just today. They passed two clauses saying that it's going to boil down to is memes are going to be shut down.
Dude, no.
Oh, yeah, and they're doing it under the banner of there's no fair use. If you use any image at all whatsoever, you got to pay that person a fee for using their image. And what's driving it is a lot of people aren't happy with the EU, not just in England, but across the continent. And they're using their humor and their wit, and they're lashing out against their EU overlords. Well, the EU is not happy with that, so they found a way to say, there's still question on how it's going to be implemented, but you had it right there, filters. So every platform from Facebook to YouTube to anything's going to have to filter everything for copyrighted images, and unless the person has paid a usage fee, then you can't use that image. What's going to do is small channels will be shut out because they won't. I'm going to guess what they're going to do is you pay a lump. If you're a radio station, you pay a lump sum to have access to a catalog of songs that you play. And when those songs get played, the person, Neil Diamond gets his 5 cents for every time I said is played, right? So the same thing is, every time, I saw a meme yesterday. It's from the movie Jaws, and it's Roy Scheider, right where he sees Jaws for the first time, and he stumbles back in the boat, and he tells the captain, "You're getting the bigger boat." So it's Roy Scheider. His eyes are open, his mouth is open, his cigarette's falling out of his mouth, and it says to the Democrats, "You're going to need a bigger hoax." Absolutely funny, absolutely brilliant. And in EU, they're going to shut that down because they don't want freedom of expression. And my point being is, again, here in America, we have a thing called freedom of speech, but the Democrats would love to put restraints on that. And what has me scared is, well, who gets to define what those restraints are? Who gets to define what hate speech is? If I get to decide what hate speech is, okay, I can live with that, right? But AOC Cortez chick, she's not going to agree with my definition of hate, and I can tell you right now, I'm not going to agree with her definition of hate. So why don't we just keep it with freedom of speech? You can say whatever you want to say. There's nothing in the Constitution that guarantees you the right to be not offended. That just comes with being a grown-up. People are going to say things that you don't like. And George Carlin has a huge, his forbidden words, and he ends it with, and he's all upset at the Christian conservatives are out there who are making TVs and radios more difficult to hear. You can't speak freely because you can't say the 7 cuss words. And his response is, well, there's 2 knobs. One that's on and off / volume, and the other one changes the channel. And same thing that George Carlin would preach to all of those who are like, we can't stand hate speech. Well, if you don't like it, turn the channel, turn it off, turn off the volume. I myself want to hear what the haters have to say. I want to hear what they have to say. So if I ever get a chance to confront them, I know their arguments, and I've had time to digest their arguments, and then I can tear them apart when opportunity presents itself. I don't know if you recall, years and years ago, there was a family get-together in Emmett, Idaho, and all the significant people were brought in. I'm driving as Audrey on. Do you recall this?
I'm trying to remember. Where was it again? Idaho, you said?
In Idaho. The whole time I'm there, we were diametrically opposed. The whole time there, I'm fascinated by him because he's operating in a polar opposite universe to myself. And I finally got him to have a dialogue. So we're talking back and forth. And I'm asking questions that I want to understand where he's coming from, but he would say something that causes me to have another question. And so we're going down the line, and then he made the statement of, this is, we're talking like 2005 or so. I don't know, what year did your mom get married? It was, W was still in office, and 9/11 still pretty fresh in everyone's minds. And he comes out and makes a statement of, well, Osama bin Laden's not a radical Muslim. He's not a radical. He just hates America. And I'm thinking to myself, are you insane? And I started asking questions. I said, well, I read an article. He gave an interview to the Guardian, and the Guardian, between me and you and everyone else who may have listened, the Guardian's a left-wing rag. It is to the left of it's a leftist outlet. It's a leftist news organ. But a reporter got a hold of Osama bin Laden, and they asked two questions: why did you attack on 9/11? Why did you attack us, us the West? And what do we have to do for you to stop? And his first answer is a long, rambling. Saudi Arabia has been violated because American troops were defending Saudi Arabia against the Iraqis, and which, by the way, by the time he delivered the speech, that was gone. The troops had left because Iraq was no longer a threat. And he goes on and talking about your Western TV is broadcast around the world, so it's immoral. So in that term, think of Pamela Anderson on Baywatch running around in a skimpy suit. Not that skimpy if you think about it. But the every show episode plot line is you have these women driving cars, you have these women running around with not clothed like they would be in Saudi Arabia, and you have these women not married to men having sexual relations with the men of their choice, right? And for Osama bin Laden, that's punishable by death, because that's one of the reasons they attacked us in 9/11. And he goes on to say, and so then it gets to the part two. What do we, the West, have to do for them to stop? In no particular order. Well, number one was number one. Number one, convert to Islam. And then from this point on, no particular order. Cease the production of alcohol, pornography, gambling, interest, right? Interest is in credit cards and 30-year fixed mortgages that have an interest rate to them. And fornication and homosexuality, right? And so I gave that to Adrian and said, no, he is a radical Muslim. This is what he wants in life. And he literally said, that's not true. I go, what do you mean it's not true? I read it from the Guardian. It's like, well, the Guardian, it's a newspaper. I go, yeah, and he said, and it's, everyone knows the newspapers are controlled by the Jews. And then a couple things happened all at once for me. I was thinking, I'm really hoping everyone here gathered heard that, because on that note, how do you counter that? How do you get someone, they're answering questions, and then they pin themselves into a corner, and they go, oh, okay, how do you reconcile your belief with the facts? And the answer is, well, I don't have to reconcile those, because in the final analysis, the Jews are control of everything, and it's the Jews' fault. And then so it's like, well, okay, that's interesting to know. You're a racist. You're a racist, and there's no real way to win this debate, because anything I can come up from this point on, if you get into another corner, you'll just play it's the Jews are behind us. And the point being is, I want people who I disagree with, I want them to feel free to talk. I want them to be recorded. I want to be able to listen to them at my leisure, so I know where they're coming from. And again, if I ever get a chance to meet with them, I can say, these you hold to this view, right? But if you don't allow that free, open discussion, then then all sorts of crazy things start to happen, because people start, well, it must be true because the government won't let us, right? And that's the problem Europe's having right now. Europe's having a resurgence of Holocaust denial, because in Europe it's against the law to deny the Holocaust happened, which it did happen. But the problem is you have a whole generation of Europeans who don't understand the facts because they haven't had to study it. And then you get some anti-Semitic guy who comes on and says, well, it's a hoax, it never happened, and they start throwing out their made-up facts and figures. The ones who haven't given it much deep thought are starting to think to themselves, well,
Well, this is why they've made a law why we can't talk about it, because if you talk about it, the whole thing comes apart. And that's not what I want. I would love for your average European to understand both sides, the facts and the made up facts. And so when they hear someone spouting off on crazy speak, they can identify it as crazy speak and say, well, no, you're wrong for the following reasons. For example, we've got the letter. The Germans were meticulous engineers, meticulous records keepers. For some people, they don't realize that literal tons of documents from the Nazis survived the Holocaust. And so here's one of the for examples. For example, German engineering, home code engineering says if you have an outside door, it opens to the outside. And if it's an inside door, it opens to the inside. And so we've got the actual letters from the engineers that were building the gas chambers in Auschwitz begging for permission to make an inside door open outside, because they made an inside door that opens inside, but because you pack it full of a bunch of people and then you close the door and then you gas them and they die trying to get out of the door, now you've got a stack of bodies, so many feet high, dead, and you can't push the door open because they're dead, and so you have to punch a hole through the wall to clear the bodies to open the door. And so you have letters from the carpenters at Auschwitz begging for special permission to make an inside door that opens outside, and then correspondence going back. Why? Why do you want an inside door that opens outside? And they're trying to dance around the problem. It's like, well, we close it, we can't open it. Well, why is that? And so you have some bureaucrat who's in charge of house, building ordinances, and he's not getting the big picture of what they're doing. And that's just a small, for example, of what's going on in Holocaust. I know that again because I'm a history geek. I took the classes and I still remember what I thought. But the point being is, no one talks about it in Europe. And then you get a handful of people who have diseased minds who like, hey, there's an entire population that are completely historically illiterate, and I can start talking stuff, and they're not capable, they're not equipped to handle my arguments. And again, they're going to fall back and think, well, it must be true because that's why there's a law that says we can't. No, take away those laws, allow freedom, free flow discussion anywhere on any topic that consenting adults want to engage in, and the government needs to step out of that. But I am rambling now.
No.
We started off talking about going back to my never Trumpers who were, well, Trump's a horrible person. Trump, maybe subconsciously anti-Semitism. Trump has done more good than Mitt Romney because again, Trump won, and Trump's done more good than most Republican presidents because he doesn't have the same calculations of the politician. Trump, you could Google it. Obama ran and said, when I become president, I'll move the American embassy to Jerusalem. Well, that goes back to Bill Clinton. Well, Bill Clinton was in office. Congress wrote a law saying we're going to move the capital from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And Clinton said he would do it, but he didn't do it. Then W said he would do it. He didn't do it. Then Obama said he was going to do it. He didn't do it. Trump ran and said he was going to do it. And by God, guess what? He did it. But not just that. This is a day or two ago, Donald Trump told Israel, America recognizes that Israel has sovereignty over the Golan Heights. Now, for those who don't understand what that means is pre-1967, Syria, the border of Syria went all the way to Golan Heights. And they're called the Golan Heights because it's a what's it called? A plateau, an escarpment. You've got Israel down low, and then you hit this rise in ground. The ground shoots up, I think 1,000 feet or so, and it's high. It's super, super high. And this is a little bit of physics here. If you park an artillery cannon on top of an escarpment, on top of a height, guess what? You can shoot farther because you're higher up, and so the artillery shell has farther to fly before it actually hits the earth. And so the Syrians would park their artillery on the Golan Heights and shell Israel on a semi-regular basis. Just a constant harassment, to the Israelis, because we have the high ground, right? It's the heights, the Golan Heights. We have the high ground, and we can do it, and there's nothing you can do to stop us. Well, the 6-day war kicks in, and in the first day or two, the Israelis are dealing with the Egyptians, and they do a very good job of dealing with the Egyptians. And we have recordings of Gamal Abdel Nasser begging King Hussein of Jordan to join in on the fight. And the Israelis attacked the Syrians second, so then they're fighting the Syrians, and their goal was to push the Syrians back to deny them the Golan Heights so that they wouldn't get shelled on a regular basis. And then the Jordanians jump in, and the Israelis fought back their Jordanians to the West Bank. But my point being is the Israelis took that ground in the 6-day war of 1967. And it's been an open wound on what should happen with this land ever since 1967. And Trump point blank told the Israelis, "We recognize that you have sovereign right over that land." And here's a concept for people who don't understand why. And I'm not sure if we talked about this before, Ben. So if I repeat myself, you got to let me know. Why is Minnesota in America and not Canada? Right? And the answer is not because it belongs to America. The answer is because Canada believes it belongs to America. The minute Canada thinks, well, who owns Minnesota is open for debate. The issue is open for debate until it's settled. And where the borderline with Canada and America became, well, that was a point of contention and debate until the War of 1812. And then we kind of sat down and said, okay, we're going to draw a line. Above that line is England would become Canada, and below that line is America, right? But the point being is, Syria thought the Golan Heights were theirs. They parked artillery pieces there. They were firing into Israel. In June of 67, the Israelis pushed them out, deprived them of the high ground, and the Syrians haven't been able to use that ground for a launching pad since 1967. Now, they think that there's still a debate. They want it back. But again, going back to Trump, the brilliance and the thing that I applaud for Trump is Trump told the world that America recognizes that is part of Israel now. It's theirs. They can do what they want with it. If they want to give it back to the Syrians, they can. And if they want to keep it, they can. It's up to them. They get to decide. And that's glorious news. That's absolutely wonderful news. Assad's not happy, but I don't care about Assad. Assad's a terrorist. Well, not like ISIS, but, he's not a lover of Western values, and I have no care for what Assad has to say on the issue. Another thing Trump has done, unlike Hillary, Trump has defunded Hamas and the Palestinian Authority. We were giving them $600 million a year, and little by little, he turned one spigot off. It was like $34 million. He turned that spigot off, and then sometime down the road later on, he said, "Okay, I'm turning off the entire $600 million that America's been giving to the PA, the Palestinian Authority, and Hamas, and they've been using this money to build tunnels and train terrorists and attack Israel." And he defunded them. And the international world howled and screamed and moaned. Guess how many countries said, "We're going to make up for what the Americans cut your funding by $600 million. Well, we united countries are going to come together and make sure you guys get your $600 million." Guess how many countries have stepped forward to compensate when America stopped funding? Take a guess.
6.
0. Not one. All these countries were howling, "How dare you do that, America?" And not a single country said, "Hey, Palestinian Authority, here's some money to make up for what those mean Americans did." And you think about the countries that were howling. You have the oil-rich countries, and you have France and England and Belgium, all of Europe, right? And it's like between the petrol-rich countries, for the Saudis, $600 billion, they spend that in a weekend, right? With all the countries having a party. Nobody said to the Palestinian Authority, here's some money to compensate. Because it made great news to scream and criticize Trump. But what I think is the most revealing thing is no nation and said, well, we're going to compensate for that. Because they knew what the money was being spent for. It wasn't being spent to feed children, and it wasn't spent to make houses for kids. It was being used for terrorism. And Trump had the guts to call it that way. So to my never Trumper friends, Trump is doing more good. I had a never Trumper friend tell me it's better to lose nobly than to win with like the likes of Trump. To which I say you're high as a kite. We lost nobly with Mitt Romney. And what we got from that, what we got from a Mitt Romney loss was Obamacare became solidified, can't be taken away. Mitt was like, it was still new enough that Mitt ran and said, Obama's given 6,000 waivers to individual companies here and there because it was crippling them. He said, I'm going to issue waivers to the whole country. And Obama took the precedence with my presidential waiver. He can exempt these people. Well, I'm just going to exempt the country, and then that's it. Obamacare's done. But he lost, and he didn't do that. Another thing that because of Mitt Romney, that Iran deal, we gave Iran how many? 13 billion was it 13 trillion dollars? In one day, America became the #1 sponsor money-wise for terrorism because Iran is the #1 sponsor of terrorism in the world, and in one day, Obama gave them trillions. I think it was trillions of dollars, maybe billions for sure. 13 billion, maybe 13 trillion. We gave them a copious amount of money in paper money and in gold. And overnight, guess what? We're now the #1 sponsor, and not only are we the #1 sponsor of terrorism, we gave them a path to nuclear weapons, which is absolute sheer insanity. Sheer insanity. And oh, by the way, Trump is undoing the Iran deal. Thank God for that. There's so many reasons to thank God that Trump won as a flawed individual, as a flawed person. Who may be crass and may be boorish, and who stays up, because I've heard critics say, what is he doing up at 3 o'clock in the morning tweeting away about whatever? And my response is, I don't care. It doesn't keep me up at night.
He himself has said that so many times, and that it literally has to do simply with this: the fact that if he didn't do the tweeting, if he didn't, then that just simply means that we would be stuck with only Fox and only CNN or whoever, whatever political pundits. I mean, he said it many times. He says that's the only way I can actually reach the people. Because the actual media isn't doing their job and isn't telling people the truth. Every time he would say that they're the enemy of the people, the reason why he's calling the media the enemy of the people is because they're not telling us the truth. That's everybody was freaking out about we're not the enemy, you're the enemy. It's like, but they're being the enemy by lying. If you're lying to your audience, you're literally blatant, flat out lies, and there's so many of them. That is something that an enemy does. And so, I think that the rhetoric has changed so much since Obama. It makes me wonder that if everybody complains about Trump and blah blah blah, but it's like, imagine if it was Romney, would Romney have been able to handle all the identity politics, all the craziness? He just shuts people down, and it makes you wonder if Romney would be able to handle it because the way he handles it so well.
Well, two things to say, and with Romney, and again, I'm all for Trump tweeting. I love the fact that he lives rent free in all of their brains. I think he plays them like a fiddle. I think, me personally, I think that's what's going on. Yes, he's communicating to his fans, but number two, he just understands that I can stick at these people and get them revved up, and by them being revved up, I'm exposing them for the circus that they are because they're running around just apoplectic at what's going on. So I'm all for it, but that's what gets me is they're criticizing him being up. He's up at 3 o'clock in the morning because he's up, and he came up with an idea of how to push their buttons, and they're falling for it. Right? The day they stop talking about it, the day they stop criticizing them, is the day he'll stop pushing their buttons. But going back to but on Mitt, see, this difference between Trump and Mitt is they try. Mitt, you're right. Mitt would have been susceptible to, well, I can't do that. They'll call me names, and I don't want to be misrepresented. I don't want to look bad doing that. Because as a senator, he's buckling the same. Is well, he's as senator, he's one of the 12 senators that came out and voted against the wall. I was like, thank you very much, Mitt. Why don't you just? I wouldn't be surprised at all is if Mitt jumps parties and makes a presidential run in 2020 as a Democrat.
You're kidding, really? You think so?
Well, no, but he won't do it because, and this is the brilliance of Trump. Trump has so polarized the Democrat Party that Alexandra Cortez, I always forget what her middle name is. The nut job, right, from New York.
Ocasio, but don't call her by her full name. She doesn't deserve it.
Cortez. I love the name Cortez.
Just call her Cortez, yeah.
Cortez is now considered mainstream. She's the leader. She's the spiritual leader of the party. And that's the brilliance of Trump. If Mitt Romney were to jump ship and try to run as Democrat, he would be eaten alive. I think right now, of all the names that are officially out there, Hickenlooper, former governor of Colorado, is the most mainstream. Now he's a lefty. He's a lefty and same-sex marriage guy. I can go all the reasons why I don't care for it. But as governor of Colorado, he oversaw Colorado when we were doing a energy boom, fracking. Well, while the rest of the nation went through a major financial crisis from 2007 because of the mortgage meltdown, Colorado, our home values maintained. We didn't lose ground. Some states lost 50% equity in their homes. Some states lost 10% or 15% equity in their homes. Minnesota lost 15% equity in homes. Colorado didn't lose any equity in homes because our economy was standing on its own, and we had fracking going on. And Hickenlooper oversaw that. He knew what was good for the economy, and he gave it his blessing. Now, if he manages to get up there with name recognition like Kamala or Spartacus or Elizabeth Warren or Beto, right? If he gets into that tier of action, he will be torn to pieces because he helped rape the country, rape the earth with all the fossil. He's a fossil fuel governor. They'll rip him to pieces. And so my point being is Trump has so polarized the Democrats that they have no option except for to run the lunatics. They only have crazy people that can make it. And if you're not to the left of crazy, you will be eaten as a non-believer, as a non-true believer. Could you imagine if some Democrat now who makes it to the top tier? Beto was asked, "Are you against the infanticide? Fetus survives the abortion. You have a baby born alive. Are you for saving that baby's life?" He refuses to answer the question. He won't say no because oh yeah, okay, you're for infanticide, but he won't say yes because he's weak on women's choice, right?
He's such an idiot. I hate. Yeah.
Well, I'm with you, but my point being is the left, the Democrats are at the point now where saying you're not for murdering a baby outside the womb puts you in the weak on abortion issue. And Trump is pro-life, right? So most people have a problem with, oh wait, are we talking about murdering babies outside the womb? Most people are against that. And so in 2020, one of the issues is going to be, are you pro-life? And is Trump saying I want to get rid of all abortions? No, he's not saying that, right? But he is saying I'm against murdering babies outside the womb, and I'm also against late-term abortions, which happens to 70% of Americans are in the same category. So you're going to have people who are rational saying, okay, well, Trump, I'm kind of more on Trump's side on the abortion issue than this person who can't commit himself to saving the life of a baby that's been born, right? And that's just one of many issues. And then the guy who does Starbucks, he's talking about, hey, we got to get somebody who understands the economy. We can't have these full-blown socialists running. They'll freaking destroy the economy. And now he's being vilified. Why? Well, you're a rich man. You're a rich white man. What the hell do you have? You have no say in our party. Get the hell out of here, right? They're eating
each other.
They're eating each other, but they're eating the ones who are not crazy. They're already being eliminated from the pool. And so come 2020, all they're going to have is a lunatic running against Trump who is going to exploit the fact that they're lunatics. And I love it. I absolutely love it. And then 2024, I don't know. Is Pence going to run? Is somebody else going to run? I don't know. But maybe, hopefully, by 2024, the Democrats will realize, hey, we need to find our best, our brightest, our not crazy, and put them forward. And then maybe we can get our best and brightest, and we can go back to having, a classical sense of two parties putting forth their best, their brightest. But right now, Trump is a manifestation of the times that we're living in. He is where he is because of the times that we're in, and I think and I'll say it again to the never Trumpers out there. Trump is doing more good because he won. He didn't sit back and let Hillary win because he didn't see himself as a problem, but to all the morons out there, all the never Trumpers, how close did we come to having Hillary having 2, possibly 3 Supreme Court justices? The country as we know it would have been destroyed forever. Forever. Gun rights would have been gone away. Hate speech laws would be enforced. And now we'd be talking about Robert Singer, or is it Robert Singer? Professor Singer. He's a moral ethicist, philosopher. Peter Singer. He says, hey, parents should have up to 30 days to abort their child, right?
How many?
30 days. And he's a professor, and he's employed, and he has said this on more than one occasion. You should have up to 30 days to abort your child.
Wait, after it's been already alive?
After it's been born. You've been born, take it home, because no one really knows. I mean, unless you've had a baby, you don't know what it's like waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning and change a diaper. Rebecca would throw up every night. She had some problems. She threw up every night for months on end. And I mean, we're talking horrible mess. And so my wife and I would get up. One of us would take her to the bathroom, give her a bath, and then the other one strip the crib and put on new sheets. And then we get done about the same time, come back in, put her in jammies, put her back down to sleep. And it was, imagine that every night for months on end that happened. And people don't. And his point is, you don't know what you're in for. And maybe you're not up for it, right? Who wants the baby? When it's uncomfortable, when it's inconvenient. Now it's colicky. There's no stopping the crying. If you want to abort it, well, go ahead and abort it. I mean, and his argument is, well, we do medical experiments on monkeys. We kill monkeys all the time, and a monkey is more, a full-grown monkey, a chimpanzee, is more sentient than a newborn infant of 30 days old. A monkey will know its name. A monkey will know if you give it a gesture for it's time to eat. It'll know, hey, it's time to eat. You can't communicate to a month-old baby. They're just an eat, sleep, poop machine. And there's no, but I will say this: they do recognize their parents' name, because I read my older daughter while my wife was pregnant. I read The Lord of the Rings, and she was born C-section, and they cut her out, and then I went with her and cleaned her off, and we came back and then put her in her mom's arms, and she would snuggle up to her mom, and then I was off the side and I spoke, and her head just turned to me. She recognized my voice because I would read for an hour or 2 every night while she was in the womb, and she knew my voice at a day old. She knew my voice, right?
Oh, wow.
This Peter Singer guy, he's a monster. He's a well-respected professor and writes books and gives lectures, and there's the face. He's the face of a guy who says you should be able to terminate a baby up to 30 days after it's born. No big deal. Oh. And that was considered crazy, wild out there. Now we're talking about 1 day. And if you're gonna concede you can kill the baby after 1 day, well, why not 2? And if not 2, why not 3? Where's the magic line? If you're conceding we can now kill babies outside the womb, what point does it stop?
Yeah, where's the line? That means that just literally.
And you listen to the arguments for abortion. Well, as long as the baby is if it's a life dependent upon another life, well, then you should be able to abort that. Like, well, how many 5-year-olds are making their own way in the world? 5-year-old, newsflash, 5-year-olds are dependent upon their parents. Oh, but it's a leash. It's a leech on the. It's a leech on.
It's a parasite. Lately, that's all they've been saying.
Well, you know what? If you have a 5-year-old, they're going to need a new pair of shoes. You know, they're leeching into your pocket. You know, they're taking food out of your mouth. You know, and so every argument you can construct for at what point you can abort a baby can be applied to a 5-year-old, except for getting into the sentient part. Okay, well, at 5 years old, they can laugh at SpongeBob and they can say, "Mommy, I love you," right? But what happens if they can't, though? What happens if they're severely mentally handicapped? Again, the Holocaust didn't start with the Jews. The Holocaust started with life unworthy of life. And by that we mean those who were horribly deformed physically and or mentally. And when the German population got because the argument is these people are leeches on society. We have to pay medical staff to take care of them all day, every day, and they give no net benefit to the society as a whole. They're a drain, and we have to. And it was pure social Darwinism. You know, if you have a lame horse that can't perform, you know, put the horse down. If the horse has a broken leg, and you know it's just causing, you know, it's not helping on the farm. Then it's taking resources from another horse. So put it down. You got a cow that will a milk cow that no longer gives milk. Well, time to turn that one into baloney. And you got a person that can't provide a service to the state. Put it down. It's life unworthy of life. And that's where the Holocaust starts. And lo and behold, the abortion movement is rallying around Down syndrome kids, right? It's standard. They'll ask you, do you want to test and see if your baby is Down syndrome or not? And sometimes you can say no, but they'll still run the test anyways. And then if it comes back, they'll say, okay, well, you're positive for Down, so when do you want to schedule the abortion? Right? And I know people who are religious and say, well, we don't want to schedule an abortion. That goes against our religious principle.
Yeah.
And that's met with incredulity. They're like, what? Of course you want an abortion. Who in their right mind wants a Down syndrome? And they're like, well, we happen to think that, you know, it's a gift from God, and if God wants us to have a Down's kid, then, you know, we're going to do that. That's, you know, that's not for us to decide. But in places like Sweden and Norway, it's Denmark, it's the law. You get they run the test, it's Downs. We don't care about your personal values. We're going to abort that child because it's going to be a drain on society. And again, some people might draw a distinction between killing a Down syndrome person in the womb and outside the womb, because you can say, well, I'm not a Nazi. I'm not for killing Down syndromes that have been born. Well, I don't see a distinction. We both know it's a human being. We both know it's a Down syndrome. It's going to be Down syndrome. One is going to be Down syndrome. One is Down syndrome. But you're both for the same thing. You're both for murdering Down syndromes because they're down. And that's the world we live in. That's the world that we're in. And this guy is a poster child for that kind of. But I'm talking way fast and way a lot.
Well, no. I was just going to add that I find it very interesting, especially with like Down syndrome kids. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, they're actually pretty, like, in general. I've met a lot of people with Down syndrome in general. They're pretty smart, and it's not like it's this horrible thing. Anyway, it's one of those things. It's like, okay, I guess it falls into some category that you know.
If you ever have the blessing to be in the same room with a Down child, with a family that loves it, you will never experience so much love.
Yeah.
I'm friends with the family, and their child radiates love.
Yeah.
And it is the most amazing thing in the world. And he just radiates love. And for me, that child is a gift from God.
Yeah.
Giving people, everyday people, a glimpse into what the love of God is all about. Just unconditional love.
Yeah.
Right? We go into, you know, God and this and that. There is justice involved, but my point being is, I happen to think anybody who would murder a baby for almost any, you know, I used to be in the camp for rape, incest, life of the mother, and one by one, life of the mother. Well, if it's a late term pregnancy and the life of the mother is in danger, the medical guidebook will say, oh, this something's gone wrong. The mother is dying because she's carrying a child. Number one thing to do to save the mom, C-section. It's the fastest way. Cut right in there, pull the baby out. You can sew the mom up. And a side note, the baby's going to be fine and dandy. But late-term abortion, those take hours. Because you're going to kill the baby and pull it out in pieces, because that's hideous. And there's no medical reason under the banner of life of the mother. There's no medical reason at all whatsoever under the banner of, well, we had to do this late-term abortion for the life of the mother. So you take that one out. And so then I was like, okay, well, now I'm down to rape or incest, right? Who wants to, Obama's line, I don't want my daughter to be punished for, now I don't want her to be punished for a choice that she made. Well, that's not rape or incest. That's just point blank birth control, right? And we went from birth control being from taking a pill to using prophylactics to whatever, that's birth control. Now you've created a life, and now you're talking about murdering a baby because you want your life to be convenient. That I'm completely. But rape or incest. So I could say, well, here's the thing. If we could be talked, if I could here, this is just between me and you and whoever's listening. I could be talked into using abortion for rape or incest under the following circumstances. The woman has to fill out a police report. I was raped and or incest, right? And they go, okay, fine. And on this one, it's there's no guy to try because he's out there somewhere. We don't know who he is. He's some rapist. So we're going to perform the abortion, but we're going to take a DNA sample so we'll know who the father is. And when that guy, father, we know who the rapist is. And if that guy's DNA profile ever pops up anywhere in the system, we've got him. And we're going to try him. And he's going to be convicted for rape and murder because the baby was murdered, not because of anything the mom wanted to do. The mom is an innocent victim, right? So we're going to call it a murder, and we're going to call it a rape. And if that guy's DNA pops up, he's going to face rape and murder charges.
Ugh.
And then, how many women are? And if that happens, my ideal would be. I'm getting really nasty looks from my lovely wife. The ideal would be from that point forward, any guy who's thinking, hey, I'm gonna have an intimate moment with this woman who may be a complete stranger because I just hooked up with Tinder, or it might be a long-term girlfriend or whatever, right? They're gonna think twice. What I want is they're gonna be more responsible, right? Maybe if I had a son, I would say to him, son, I'm gonna really counsel you long and hard that you don't get busy with anyone unless you really know who they are and you have, this woman's, make sure that she's not going to get pregnant, because if you don't want a baby, so if that means you have to go out and get a vasectomy or whatever, right? Just be responsible. Be responsible, because abortion should not be used as birth control. That's just immoral. It's wicked and it's evil. And if we're gonna have an exception for rape or incest, I want the rapist or I want either incest is rape, rape is rape. I want the rapist to be punished the maximum that can be punished. And so,
yeah.
Oh, have we talked about Moloch before? That's an image of
about
Moloch.
what?
You had an image that's an image that you brought up. That is an image of Moloch.
I know because Alex Jones talks about him, and I know that Owen Benjamin has talked a little bit about him, but yeah, I'm curious as your thoughts. I just noticed it as they were talking, and I was curious your thoughts on.
I've been talking about this for 20 years now. So I'm not sure what they've said it, so I'll throw them in my 2 cents.
Please tell me.
You bet. So, for those who give any credence, culturally speaking, historically speaking, to the Old Testament's a bunch of things.
First of all, before you get into it, I want to just ask you: do you think that some of the Hollywood, because the Illuminati, I know that some of this is like intertwined, and that's what Alex Jones thinks. Do you think that any of the abortions, or at least the late-term abortions in New York, have anything to do with this, or do you think that they're just they could be?
I
Go ahead.
can't say for sure that it's not.
Okay.
You have Marilyn Manson. And I'm not a Marilyn Manson aficionado. I do know from interviews that he said that he got his girlfriend got pregnant, and they went in, and he looked upon the abortion as a human sacrifice. Now, was he saying that it's part of his character, Marilyn Manson, to make grown-ups and adults even more upset at him? Maybe. Was he saying that because that's how he really felt, and he really is a Satan worshiper? Maybe. I don't know. The fact is that he said it. He has to own that, and that's up to him. I think for some people, it very well could be a form of human sacrifice, because in the final analysis, it's human sacrifice. It's murder, right? So Moloch is mentioned in the Old Testament. Moloch. So I'm going to use common stuff, different pantheons. So you've heard of Zeus, you've heard of Jupiter. Greek is the version of Zeus. Roman is the version of Jupiter. They have counterparts, Venus and Aphrodite, both the goddess of love. Mars and Ares, god of war. Mars is Roman, Ares is Greek. Hermes and god of message of the wing, guy with the wings is Hermes, and I can't think. Hermes is the god of speed, the god of messenger, and the Romans have another version, right? So what I'm driving at is you can have different cultures with the same pantheon of gods. So Moloch, Dogon, Baal, they're all the same pantheon, different names for the same god. So Moloch is Baal is Moloch, and they're both Dogon. So the idol of Moloch, Dogon, or Baal, for this part of the ceremony would be it's a hollow idol. His arms are stretched out. They build a fire in the idol, get it red hot, and then in the Old Testament it says they place their children into the arms of Moloch, which is they would burn their children alive. The Carthaginians were Baal worshippers. This is a historical fact, archaeology. The Carthaginians sacrificed their children. Not all of them. First, I'm not sure what the criteria was, firstborn or whatever, but the Carthaginians would sacrifice their children to Moloch. We have the skeletons in the mass pits. This is a fact, undeniable fact. And the reason they would do it is this
the golden calf that they're talking about in the Bible? Then
the golden calf, that's the Israelites. They leave.
Okay, never mind.
Different story. So the point is, the reason that they would do this in the spring is a fertility rite. So they're saying, hey, we're going to take our offspring, our children, we're going to sacrifice them to this deity who is in charge of fertility. So we'll have more kids because with blessings come rewards. But specifically fertility-wise, we've just planted the wheat or whatever crop that we're growing, and we want to make sure that we have a bountiful harvest come the fall. So the whole concept of the children's sacrifice was to have a more prosperous, more convenient life. If you have a big harvest, life is good. You have lots of food. Life is easy. If you have a lean harvest, well, you're going to have you're going to have a hungry winter because you got to save some of that for seeds for the next spring. And to ensure a comfortable, easy life, they would sacrifice their children. Now, 97% of abortions are for birth control, for convenience. Why did you get the abortion? Well, it wasn't the right time for me. I was in school and it just wasn't convenient for me. Oh, you did it for convenience. You murdered a baby for convenience. What is the difference between murdering a baby for convenience with Moloch versus murdering a baby for convenience while it's in the womb? Well, you could say you're not burning it to death. I'm not a medical expert, but I know one of the versions for late-term abortion is a saline type thing. They'll inject the womb with acid, and women have who you talk to like, oh yeah, I can feel the baby kicking for days as it was being burned, acid burned to death, salt, concentration. It's tearing from limb to limb, right? There's a lot of pain there. Would you rather be burned to death, or would you rather have your limbs torn off you one at a time? I don't know, right? But the bottom line is they both feel pain, and that's what kills me, Ben. Is you get being on the right, I can't tell you how many times people look at me and say, "Well, you're just a science denier." And I was like, "No, I'm not a science denier. I actually listen." My thoughts on man-made global warming come from scientists who have run the numbers and whatnot, right? And then when you say all science is great, it's like, well, actually they don't, because I've listened to actual climate scientists, and they have a lot of very, very interesting things to say. You know, they'll bring up the medieval warming period and a whole bunch of things, right? My point being is, I listen to scientists and I listen to medical science. The medical says, well, yeah, the baby, the neural system is fully up and running at whatever time, right? But late-term abortion, it's definitely there for late-term abortion. They can feel pain, right? I am not the one denying science. Oh, by the way, when does life start? Science will tell you when it starts. It starts at conception, because now you went from an individual egg and an individual sperm to they now collide, they combine, and all of a sudden we have a brand new DNA strand that's self-replicating. You know, and it's not the mom cells and it's not the dad cells. It's life. It is life. It's independent life. That's the science, right? But somehow or another, I'm the science denier. I'm looking at the science, and but yet I'm the one who doesn't believe in science. It drives me crazy. It drives me bonkers. But the point being is that's all in Moloch is you have people sacrificing babies to ensure a convenient, easy life, and 97% of abortions are for convenience.
I'm dying to know what they believe. What do they believe that Moloch benefits from the baby? Is he drinking the blood? Is that just something?
It's the concept of you're sacrificing something great, and you know the greater the sacrifice, the greater it is. Now, other cultures have the same kind of concept. I actually read more. So, like the Aztecs were in on this. The Aztecs did human sacrifice to be sure, but the Aztecs, come springtime, they wanted to make sure that it would rain. You know, they planted the crops, they want rain. So the thing that the Aztecs would do is they would take a 5-year-old choice little girl, beautiful little girl, and all the ways you can measure beauty, hair, eyes, skin, complexion. Find a beautiful little girl, 5-year-old girl, and they would begin to literally torture her to death.
Oh my gosh!
In the context of the more tears we can get out of this child before it dies of shock and pain, the more tears we get out of the child, the more rain we'll get. So it's not a quick and easy. We want this prolonged for as long as possible to get as many tears as we can out of the child. And they did that. Again, it's a fertility thing. We're doing it to make sure we have a better harvest come the summertime. Now that doesn't make the news. That doesn't make the news because that's, if you're going to go down the Aztec road, it's real geeky history. And there's actually people who want to bring back Aztec culture and the La Raza crowd. And I think you are absolutely insane. The Aztecs would to ensure that their sun god, and don't even ask me how to pronounce their names. That's where you get the ripping out of the heart stuff going on. And we can have a lot of discussion about that. For the longest time, the consensus among the historians was it's a lie because you can't take what's it called? What's the name of the obsidian? An obsidian blade, which is glass, volcanic black glass. An obsidian blade can't cut through the chest, the rib cage. So there's no way they could tear that many hearts out while it's still beating. Well, it was in the 80s or 90s. One guy was analyzing the altar, and the altar it's got a slope. So if you were to put the person's head down, their gut part is exposed because there's a little arch in the altar, so your back is arched, your head's down. And so they got a replica. They got a dummy, and they made it anatomically correct. And they said, how about if we cut through the belly and then reach up underneath the rib cage and grab the heart out? And lo and behold, you can extract a human heart in seconds with that method, and it lines up to the altar. So when we read the eyewitness accounts of 70,000 victims over 3 days having their hearts ripped out, you could say, well, yes, logistically, it's possible. It's possible. And we're talking if you
70,000.
70,000 over a 3-day festival, day and night. Priests are ripping out hearts of captured. And if you think about that, it adds up. It adds up to how did Cortez, with a handful, 500 conquistadors, conquer the Aztecs of hundreds of thousands? And the answer is, when Cortez was marching through the jungle and he came across the client nation states of the Aztecs, and he said, "I'm here to defeat the Aztecs." And their response is, the Aztecs, who every year have religious wars where they come through and they conquer us and they take our people back to their homeland and sacrifice them to their gods. You're going to conquer those guys? And Cortez's response is, yeah, those are the guys I'm not to conquer. Their response is, can I carry your bags? Can I bring you food? What can I do? Help me help you. What is it that I can do to help you? So Cortez does he does the military impossible. He has thousands of native locals who are schlepping his gear, literally, because he built up the time he goes back to his final assault, he brings boats with him. And he has natives literally schlepping his boats through the jungles and mountains to get to the I can't pronounce it, Texalanca or whatever, to the Aztec capital. And he had help. And the reason he had help is because everyone wanted the Aztecs to be taken out because they were a bloodthirsty, human sacrificing, pagan society. And he took them out. And the world's a better place for it. But this is all on the subject of human sacrifice. This is nothing new to human society. It's been around forever. Now, it was put into a box by Judeo-Western culture. It was put into a box. I mean, the Greeks. You had an imperfect baby, a baby with a club foot or whatnot. They would put it out and let it die of exposure. The wolf came by and eat it all the better. But if it died in the night because it was cold, whatever. We don't want imperfect children. And the Romans kind of the same thing. If you're handicapped, we're all about getting rid of you. And so when you say Western culture, we're not talking about Greek culture. We're not talking about Roman culture necessarily. Western culture is three things. It's Greek philosophy, Roman law, Judeo-Christian values. Right? Western civilization is Greek philosophy, Roman law, Judeo-Christian values. You take any one of those out of the equation, and you no longer
doesn't work. You lose some of it. Those are three,
and you're going to have something rather vicious and barbaric. Vicious and barbaric. For example, the Aztecs didn't have any of it. Didn't have Judeo-Christian values. Didn't have Greek philosophy. Didn't have. Oh, to be sure, they were an advanced society. They built structures that we don't understand how they did it with the tools that they had. They had a complex understanding of astronomy. They were working in high math, right? You can point to all the glories of the Aztecs, but you cannot escape the fact that they were a homicidal maniacs, and they sacrificed not only their own children on religious holidays. Oh, dude, get this! They had a religious festival. So they would have what were called the flower wars. Their warriors would go out, conquer neighboring tribes, bring them back, and so you had majority of those captures would go into the wholesale slaughter machine. But I forget the name of the actual ceremony, but once a year, one of those guys would get tapped out, like one per town, whatever, and he would be adopted by the.
Why do they call it flower wars? Is because of the way that they killed the people?
I think it's probably when a certain flower was in bloom, it was time for them to go to war.
Oh, okay.
That would be my guess. I just know that they were referred to as the flower wars, but they would take one guy, set him apart, and then he'd be ritually adopted by someone in the most prestigious family in the town would adopt a guy, and he would be treated like a son. He was instructed to call his captor father, and he would call him son. And the guy's like, "Hey, I dodged a bullet. This isn't a bad deal, right? I'm royalty now." And then after a certain amount of time was up, he'd be asleep in the morning, and then he'd be woken up early in the morning by everyone, his brothers and whatnot, his adopted brothers, and they'd beat on him and pound on him, and then they would take him to the middle of the town square and tie his one foot was tied to a stake in the ground so he couldn't run away, and they would give them a weapon that was only edged on, because I forget the name of their weapons, but it's like a giant cricket bat with obsidian blades laced all the way around. So they would give him a weapon with only half of it laced with obsidian, and then all the warriors would show up and surround him, and then they would kill him, not quick and easy, but like a cut here, a literal death of 1,000 cuts. So the guy's given something somewhat to ritually defend himself, but over the course of the time, long and slow, he'd be sliced here and there until he died, probably because of he bled out at some point or another. And then they would fillet their victims' skins off their bodies and dance around with the filleted skins. The Aztec. This is from their own creation mythos. They're wandering around in Mexico. They've got a prophet who tells them, "Hey, you'll know it's the place when you see an eagle on a cactus with a snake in its mouth." Hence, if you look at the flag of the Mexico, it's a picture of an eagle with a snake eating the snake while perched on a cactus. Well, they come to a place, they find it. There's another people living there. It's like Texarkana or whatever. And they said, "Hey, our band's going to marry the other band. Will be one people." And so, the chief of the Aztecs, his son marries the daughter of the other chief, and they're going to reunite. And so they got married in the morning, and then the couple went off, and they're eating, they're feasting, and the father-in-law, the father of the bride, is like, "Where's my daughter? I haven't seen her in the last couple hours." And there's an Aztec priest dancing and celebrating. And the dad's looking at the Aztec priest, and it's kind of dawning on him that this Aztec priest is dancing wearing the filleted skin of the other chief's daughter. And he's like, "Are you shitting me? You did what to my daughter?" And of course, the Aztec's like, "Well, of course we did. No, this is ceremonial stuff. What's your problem?" And the problem is this boat ain't floating. So that tribe beat back the Aztecs. They had to flee actually into an island in the middle of the swampy lake. And then from there, they kind of regroup. The Aztecs regroup, reform, and then they explode onto the scene, conquering all of their neighbors, subjecting them, and then turning, ritual times, every year going out, collecting victims to come back to sacrifice to. My point being is this is an example of a non-Western society. And we could go down the line. There was a time when Norway, Denmark, Sweden, and Finland were non-Western, as in, well, they're from Europe. How could it not be Western civilization? Well, look at it. The Vikings weren't really reading Greek philosophy. They weren't studying Aristotle. They weren't studying the writings of Socrates as told by Plato. They weren't reading Plato's Republic, right? They weren't concerned about constitutional republic law. And they most certainly didn't give a rat's tail about this Christian cult thing going on. They were devout believers in Odin and Thor and the rest of the gang, and living a Viking, a warrior's life. And if I live a good warrior's life, I conquer my enemies. If I do it all good, I'll go to Valhalla, where I'll be hanging out with Thor and the guys, drinking and having a party and yucking it up. And living a good life for them was, we're going to get in our boats, we're going to sail to England, we're going to sail to France, we're going to sack the monasteries, because we know they've got some gold there, and we're going to, the two terms that come together, raping and pillaging. They raped and pillaged across all of Europe, and they were good men as far as they were concerned. They came back heroes. They were lauded as heroes. That was their culture, right? And it wasn't until you had brave Christian missionaries going into those places and converting the heathens to Christianity, right? And then once you calm them down there a little bit, and then you start bringing in Catholic missionaries who've also been trained in Latin, so they can read Socrates or Livy and whatnot, and they're bringing with them the other accoutrements of Western civilization. And surprise, surprise, the Vikings of Denmark, Sweden, and Norway, and Finland, they become civilized, as in they were civilized before, they were a civilization, but they become members of Western civilization. where they adhered to the concepts of Greek philosophy, Roman law, Judeo-Christian values. One of the most important Judeo-Christian values is thou shalt not murder. That was a big for the Viking warriors. Like, what do you mean thou?
Right.
Number
All
6,
of a
thou shalt
sudden,
not murder, and number 8, thou shalt not steal. And they're like, well, what am I going to do for a job? I can't murder. I can't go out and rape and pillage. What are you crazy? Right? There was a huge kickback from them. But after a couple, we're talking like 900 AD. It starts, right, and by the 1500s and 1600s, they've toned down. They pulled it back, and now they're all good, happy little Lutherans. May they live long and be happy. But Lutheran only by I was born into the church, but they're becoming agnostic. They are not religious, which opens another topic to talk about, because there is a religion in that part of the world, and it's rapidly taking over the Lutheran churches that are empty because no one's going to church on Sunday. They're going off to the museums and whatnot because they're all Western civilized former Viking savages, and so you've got mosques popping up all across Europe because the Europeans can't be bothered to go to church on Sunday. So you have all these vacant churches that are becoming mosques. But you have the whole map. Hitler's number one criticism of Jesus is that he referred to him as I forgot. His thing against Jesus is he was a Jew, and then his teachings come to the Teutonic Germans, and they reject their warrior pride. They think in terms of Hitler absolutely was enthralled with Richard Wagner, the Rhine cycle, these operas that celebrate again Odin and the Valkyries and Valhalla and fighting dragons and this warrior mythos, this warrior ethics. And his number one criticism of Christianity is you've taken the German people who were a rough and tumble warlike people, and you've turned them into pansies. And that's one of his major criticisms of Christianity is you've tamed the and he wouldn't have said barbaric, but the natural state of the Germans, and that's what he wanted. It's surprise, he gets in control, and what are they? The German people, what are they showing as public virtues? Well, you're going to join Hitler Youth, right? Paramilitary stuff. He turns and he gets the army up and running again because he wanted war. He thought war was great. War was an avenue of purging the human race from the weak and the worthless. It was a great way. Social Darwinism again. The strong will survive, the weak will die, and that's a good thing as far as Hitler was concerned. So yeah, I'm rambling. I'm how all this stuff. Are you finding this?
Yeah. Are you kidding me? This is it's always fascinating. Like your wealth of knowledge, my good sir. So much to unpack and so many things. That in and of itself is a bigger thing too, because that's something we could get into like big time. Because I mean, just seeing some of these memes, like it's like, okay, so that's why like so many people are anti-Christian, because they literally associate Hitler with it, and there are some people who literally just think that anyone that they just alt-right, Nazi, Christian, like they just throw all that into the same thing. It's just
I loved Christopher Hitchens. When when I'm bored, I'll pull up stuff and listen to Christopher Hitchens on YouTube. And I'm 50-50 with Christopher Hitchens. If he's talking about politics, I'm down with him. This is for me. I became aware of him. It was during when Clinton was being impeached. And Hitchens.
Who are you talking about? What's his name again?
Christopher Hitchens. He was a darling of. He was a Marxist. He was a Leninist communist, right? So from his early career all of the 90s, he's a leftist nut job. And then he was friends with Bill Clinton, President Bill Clinton, and Bill Clinton lied to him personally. So Hitchens wrote a book called "No One Left to Lie to," as in Bill has lied to everybody, including me. And he was called to testify. What was Bill Clinton asking people to lie for him? And he went in there and told the truth. He's a teller of the truth as he sees it. And he went in there and said, yeah, Bill. And so he betrayed the left, and forever they hated him. And then September 11th came along, and he is a clear voice on the danger of radical Islam, is the Islamification of the West. I love him on that. Now he wrote one of the last books he wrote is called God Is Not Great. And he is as a Mormon missionary, is zealous to spread the word and love of God. Hitchens, with the same zeal and probably more effectually for one guy, he was out there saying there is no God. In fact, there were three other guys that got together, three other atheists, and they called themselves the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens. Sam Harris is now one of the Four Horsemen because Hitchens died, and he sort of replaced Hitchens as the atheist Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. But Hitchens is most people now today, because of his book God Is Not Great, they'll say, oh yeah, well Hitler was a Christian, and all Christianity is bad because of Hitler. And Hitchens is wrong. He's point blank wrong. Hitchens will argue that communism, which in its tenets says Marx himself said there is no God. God is the opium of the masses. So when you look at the personality cults of Stalin, that Stalin killed 20 million Russians, and the personality cult of Mao Zedong, and communist China killed 70 million Chinese. He places those deaths in the column of religion, and he's wrong, and he's doing it, and it's false, and he knows it. But he's dead now, so he knows it even more so. But the point being is those ideologies rejected God. They were atheists. So to say that the 70 million killed by Mao was a result of religion is point blank false. Now, to quote G.K. Chesterton, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I can't quote it exactly. He said, when man ceases to believe in God, he'll believe in anything, right? So I'll grant you there that something's going on with Mao, but it's not religion. Mao is an atheist. Stalin is an atheist. Lenin is an atheist. Hitler was a baptized Catholic, and I have my concerns with Catholicism, to be sure, but to say that Hitler was a good Catholic is beyond a stretch of the imagination. Hitler was a non-practicing Catholic. His quotes are clear. He hated Christianity. He absolutely loathed Judaism, right? And again, Hitler's critique on those two concepts, Judaism and, so this is a more in-depth thing on anti-Semitism in Germany. So prior to the rise of Hitler, prior to the 1870s, the critique against the Jews were you won't assimilate. You wear different clothes. You won't hang out with us. You have your own restaurants. You have your own communities. Now, why do they have their own communities? Because during the medieval Europe, individual areas, from towns to countries, like Spain, for example, in the early 15s, whatever, they kicked all the Jews out of Spain. They kicked them out. They said, if you're Jewish, you have to leave, right? Europe historically is not a very safe place for Jews. So the criticism before 1870s in Germany is so the reason they're clustered in what were called ghettos is because they were told you can't own land. If you're Jewish, you can't own land. You can't be a farmer. So you can't be a farmer. Well, you got to feed yourself somehow. So your options are kind of limited. You could be a doctor. You could be a lawyer. You could be a banker. You could be a trader. Those are all open to you. So lo and behold, by the 1800s in Europe, you have a lot of Jews who were bankers and lawyers and doctors. Not an international Jewish conspiracy. It's just people adjusting, adapting to the social conditions that are placed on them, right? And so prior to 1870s, they're not assimilating. Well, after a while, but by after the 1870s, a lot of Jews are dressing, doctors and lawyers. They're dressing like your typical European Christian or like a German or Englishman or Frenchman. They're dressing normal. They're not wearing the kippah. They're not wearing the shaggy beards. They're clean shaven like all their counterparts. And so anti-Semitism after the 1870s shifts to, well, we don't know who they are. Who are they? You can't tell anymore. And now they're going to pollute the bloodline. So that Hitler's critique of his anti-Semitism was based in racial purity. We don't know who they are. They're intermingling with Aryan women, and it's all about Aryan blood. Aryan blood's superior to everyone else. And we're polluting the bloodline. And also the fact that the Judeo-Christian values have weakened the German people. We used to be a warlike people. We gave the Romans our run for their money, right? And we fought some more. And in fact, it was, European barbarians that brought that stacked Roman 412. What happened to that? What happened to that? Oh, it was calmed down by Christianity. That was his anger, right? He was both. He was. I'm not sure I got on that topic, but the right being labeled, Hitler on the right and racism on the right and Christianity. Yeah. It's all a canard. It's a basic lack of understanding, historical understanding. So going back to Hitler again, not a practicing Christian in the least, right? And furthermore, it bears to be repeated. We said it before. I'll say it again. The Nazis were not right wing; they were left wing. It was the NSADP, the National Socialist NSA Arbeiten Workers Die German Party Deutschland, the National Socialist Workers German Party. They were socialists. So whoever, if someone's going to say, hey, Hitler wrote the unmutable 24 points that he ran on, 24 points, and it was, hey, we want to. If you read them, it's a socialist manifesto. We want the government control of the means of production. The workers are in control, right? Stick it to the business owners. He toned back a little bit to get for power, but he did business with the industrial class. But it didn't change the fact that he was still social. He was for socialized medicine. He was for state controlling. He toned it to the state will tell you industrialists can keep your companies, but you're working for me. You're going to do what I tell you to do. You're going to produce what I want you to produce. To Lufthansa before the outbreak of war, to Lufthansa, you're now going to make airplanes. You're going to make new airplanes because air travel is cutting edge. But when you make them, I want them to be easily converted to bombers. So all we got to do is go in there, take the seats out, tweak this and that, and bam, we got ourselves a bomber. So Lufthansa said, okay, we can do that. Well, all the planes that we make from this point forward for public transportation will be easily able to be converted to bombers should you give us the go.
And this was who gave this order, you said?
That was the Nazi government. That was, Hitler may not have sat down with the actual owner of Lufthansa and told him that, but when the Nazis seized power in 1933, they start dictating to German industry, this is what you're going to be doing. And so Lufthansa is, you make your planes, but when you make your planes, make sure that they're going to be easily converted to fighter planes. And it was against the treaty. The treaty, the Versailles Treaty said Hitler can't have an army. You can't have an army of your standing army can't be greater than I think it was 100,000, which is to say you could have an officer class. But if you join the army, it was a 10-year gig. So it's not like you can say, well, I'm going to have 100,000 guys, and I'm because the crazy thing, if you're going to go to war, you need an army, and to have an army, you got to take your guys, you got to take a raw recruit, send them to basic training, so when they come out, they can function as a trained military unit. This is a gun. I know how to shoot the gun. I know how to clean the gun. I know how to march in order. Right? It takes time to build an army, and so the Versailles Treaty is saying, to avoid that the Germans can make a shadow army. Like anybody who joins the army, it's a minimum for 10 years. So it's not like you can say we have 100,000 guys, and every 6 months we fire all those and we hire a new 100,000 guys, and we're just going to quietly train 100,000 at a time. It was, if you join the army, it was for at least 10 years, and so it's you can have an officer corps with a small bunch of guys. But you can't do a whole lot with an army. So one of the first things Hitler does is he starts issuing secret orders to the army to start recruiting more guys. So that's more of a government-to-government thing. But he goes to the industry, starts saying, start building me tanks. And that's like, well, we can't just build the tanks. I'm telling you what to do. It's your company. You can do what you want with your company, but I'm telling you, build tanks, right? Things like that. And he starts to rearm Germany under the radar. And with Lufthansa, it was we're gonna have one of the best transportation airlines in the continent. But lo and behold, when war comes, those darn things are just easily switched over to bombers. And then the other thing that got around was they made aeronautics clubs, because you're limited to so many pilots. So every town was encouraged to build, the Hamburg glider, right? Individual groups like Boy Scout troops. Troop 35. This is our glider, and they would take turns, walking up the hill, and then a guy running and jumping and learning how to fly a glider, right? So not only were they, it's a totalitarian thing. The government is control of everything. Government is control of the industry. It's control what people are doing with their private lives. So we're going to encourage Hitler Youth to go out there and go on forced marches. I want a 14-year-old guy in 1933. It's 1933. He's 14 years old. I want him to know what it's like to go on a 20-mile hike, forced hike, which means we're not stopping for lunch, we're not stopping for tea, no donuts. We got to get from here to there in this amount of time, and we got to keep going, even if you got blisters on your feet. We're still moving. And then you start hardening up a generation, and then less than 10 years later, 7 years later, it's 1940. So 1933. 6 years later, it's 1939. It's go time. We're going to war. And lo and behold, we have a bunch of kids who have been trained from their teenage years to now, and they're ready to go. They are ready to march on Europe.
So you're saying that the idea of the Boy Scouts came from Germany?
No, the idea of the Boy Scouts come from Lord Baden-Powell, who
a British guy, right?
He fought during the Boer War, so we're talking the turn of the century, 1899 to like 1901 or so is the Boer Wars, and he's an officer. And
so you're saying that was mainly just kind of stolen. The Germans kind of stole that, or took that idea, and then just kind of amplified it.
So the Boy Scouts went national. They had Boy Scouts in America, right. Boy Scouts in France. There were Boy Scouts in Germany. But when the Nazis took over, they took government control over the Boy Scouts. Well, no longer called the Boy Scouts. We're now called Hitler Youth, right? We're gonna brainwash an entire generation of young men, and then the girls had their Mädchen. There was a girl version of it also, and so they were training the guys. They were training these boys to become soldiers, and they were training the girls. If they fit the criteria, right, going back to social Darwinism, if they had a pretty girl with blonde hair and blue eyes, they were being trained to become baby machines. Because it's a little side note here. One of the perks of being an SS officer is when you had some downtime, you were encouraged to go and hang out with the female Hitler Youth gals and to knock up 17-year-olds. Because we want a lot of blue-eyed, blonde-haired babies. And then, of course, the girls were sent off to go somewhere else because they weren't married, so there was some social stigma to it. And then they would give up their babies to the state. The state had these. They tried, it completely failed, but they had a mass. The state was trying to raise a whole generation of these kids, and horrible stories come from that. Because neglect, if you got one wet nurse for 20 kids, none of those kids are getting the love and attention that they need. Right, very, very, very sad stuff there. Social engineering, it typically fails. You have 5,000 years of human history, So we've had a long time to what works and doesn't work, and be it the Nazis or be it. I just get a kick out of when people have said, "Hey, we're going to do something that hasn't been done before." Well, throughout history, it's most likely been tried, and lo and behold,
many millions of people have died.
Yeah, and you in 2015 or whatever today, 2019, you are so clever and so smart that you've come up with something that 5,000 years of human history hasn't thought of and tried, and you think you can do better than that. It's like that. I find that funny. I find that very, very funny. And if kids weren't horribly mistreated 9 times out of 10. It would be funny, but it's not funny. It's tragic. But so going back to the canard that Christopher Hitchens, no, it's not religion. Hitler wasn't. The Nazis weren't religious fanatics. They weren't. The communists, be it Stalin, Mao, Pol Pot, Che Guevara, you get your mass murderers. They were not religious fanatics. They were atheists, and they were doing it with the attempts of creating the utopia on Earth, because that's what Karl Marx said would happen, right? Pol Pot.
How do these crazy? How do they? So the way they're benefiting is just by literally living off of everybody else's work. That's essentially what it is.
So communism, with Marx. Marx says this.
Like, what's their motivation? What's their?
Give me a second.
Oh, okay.
My phone's ringing.
Go ahead and get that. I have to hit the restroom.
Okay.
All right, I'm back.
Communism is supposed to, according to Marx, evolve. You start off with, what did he call it? Society has come along, and we were, whatever he called it under the Greeks, or you have slave and master, that sort of stuff. Then it evolves into having serfs. You have the lord of the land and the serfs that work the land. Then that's going to evolve into capitalism, where you've got not lords, but you have people with means and substance building factories, and the workers working in the factories. And then he's explaining human history, which is always evolving. It's evolving from one to the other, to the other, to the other. And then he says, and then the workers will unite and overthrow the landowners, the factory owners, and then we'll enter a utopian workers' paradise, and human nature will stop evolving. In there, where everyone owns everything and everyone will work for the benefit of everybody. And then his credo is, to each according to his ability, to each according to their needs. So if you're stupid and all you could do is dig ditches, well then, by golly, you're going to dig ditches every day, and you're going to dig ditches with a heart full of happiness, and you're going to be the best darn ditch digger that's ever lived. And if you happen to have 15 kids at home, you're going to have a house that will be big enough for 15 kids, and you're going to get enough food to feed your 15 kids. And if you're a doctor, you're a spinal cord injury doctor. You are highly trained, very smart, and you're going to go into work every day just happy to be alive and happy to be a spinal cord doctor. And if you are not married and you have no kids, you're going to live in a house that is, you're going to have a 1-bedroom apartment, and you're going to have enough food to feed you, because that's all you need, right? And that's how it's supposed to work. It's never worked ever.
Right. It's so funny to think about. It's like they have no idea what goes through the mind of a doctor. A doctor is someone who's incredibly smart, incredibly brilliant, has incredible abilities, and able to save lives, wants to save lives, and their role in this life is rendered that equal to or greater, or equal to or almost the same as a janitor. And it's like, no, it's not the same. You cannot equate them. You cannot equate those two things. They are not the same.
So this is where your Pol Pot Mao Zedongs, your Che Guevaras, your Lenins, your Stalins. So they come online, and they're realizing that everyone's a different. Like Mao inherits. He comes online in a country that's still serf. It's basically you still have lords and serfs. Russia is still lords and serfs. Che Guevara and Castro, they start their little experiment in a society that's beyond the serfs. It's actually you've got rich business owners who own their businesses and factories, so they're the closest to starting it, but none of them have an organic, led from the bottom top revolution of the working masses, and so these guys are all like, we got to start it. We got to start the revolution. So they all start the revolution, and so now the revolution's going, but it needs a guiding hand. It needs someone to guide the revolution. So, and of course, they're smarter than everyone else, so they understand that we're going to guide this to become the workers' paradise. Well, so someone's got to be in control. Someone's got to guide the revolution, and so that's your Pol Pots, and that's your Mao Zedongs, and that's your Stalins. Because Stalin killed Lenin by degrees, he poisoned him by degrees, and so then the revolution is not taking place, and so they got to stay in that position to keep guiding it, and then it turns out, well, hey, this revolution can't live without me, and so now I basically what we Castro overthrow Batista, and he was a dictator. Well, Castro becomes a dictator. Mao Zedong. There was a power. The Japanese left, and there's a power struggle, and he takes in and he fills the void of the Japanese tyranny. And Pol Pot tries to get with his Khmer Rouge. They try to do a communist revolution, and whoever they kicked out and displaced, well, they have to be the hand that will guide the course. Pol Pot, that guy there, he's responsible for the massacre of 1/3 of Cambodia.
And what led him to that point? Was he? I can't remember if he started out. Was he an okay leader at first, or was he just a tyrant the whole time?
Well, he starts off as an idealist, but idealism, when it hits reality, it kind of sucks. Like, hey, nothing's working the way it's supposed to, and the people aren't.
So he was a communist. So he started out as a communist.
Right, started off as a communist, and then they're trying to make it happen. And the answer is, well, people are revolting. People aren't getting on board. Well, kill them. And then some guy's a smart guy, and he thinks he knows better than you. Well, kill him too. And so Mao Zedong, if anybody who's got glasses, we're just going to throw them in a re-education camp, because if they got glasses, they can read. And if they can read, then they haven't been properly indoctrinated by me. So we're just going to get rid of them. If you have a high school education, we're going to get rid of you. This should be a peasant's paradise. So if you're educated, we're going to kill you, literally kill you, because it's not working. With Stalin and saying people of Ukraine aren't getting on board. Well, let's take all the food away from them, create a famine, and they'll die from starvation. It always ends with where they're trying to start their revolution, and they're trying to bring about the workers' paradise, and for reasons unbeknownst to libtards, it always ends with people have to die. People have to die for the big picture to happen.
So they end up serving their own demise.
Oh, absolutely. Well, they end up so Stalin replaced pre-Stalin is Lenin. Lenin is the Tsar. The Tsar lives in opulence. He is an absolute king, absolute power, and he's overthrown. And Lenin takes over, and they're really kind of fumbling along. And Lenin has some subordinates. He's got a guy named Trotsky, who's a real life smart guy, and he's got Stalin, he's not a smart guy. He's a doer. And so Lenin and Trotsky dream up things, and they give the task to Stalin to make it happen. So Stalin's making things happen, and then he's getting kind of tired of waiting. So he starts poisoning Lenin by degrees. So Lenin eventually dies. And so everyone's thinking the power is going to go to Trotsky. And lo and behold, Stalin, because he's the doer, he's placed everyone in position. They're all beholden to him. And then Trotsky quickly realizes, I need to leave. I need to leave now, because Stalin's got a stranglehold on the power. And so Trotsky leaves, he flees, he makes it to Mexico City, where he wakes up with an axe in his head, because Stalin sent his thugs to track him down, and they killed him in Mexico. And Stalin now has more power and authority than the Tsar. Because here's the irony. The Tsars were lightening up. They were loosening up. They were giving rights and privileges to the peasants. You'd get one Tsar. It ends with Alexander. So his dad, his grandfather said, I'm going to give the serfs some more rights. And then the serfs had more rights. And with those rights, they went, hey, we want more. And they killed Nicholas's grandfather. So Nicholas's father is like those ungrateful serfs. He cracked down on the serfs hard. And so then when Tsar Nicholas II came online, it's like, okay, well, it's time to be nice to the serfs again. So he's being nice to the serfs. Didn't help that he was somewhat inbred. He was not the smartest guy in the package of the bulbs in the bulb, right? And so the cycle again of one Tsar cracking down, one Tsar getting nice, and he gets nice, and the serfs revolt again, and then he's kicked out. And what fills in the power void are the Bolsheviks, Lenin and company. And what the point I'm driving at is when Stalin solidifies his power, he's more ruthless than any Tsar of living memory, right? Way more ruthless than Tsar Nicholas II. You probably have to go back to Ivan the Terrible before you get a Tsar that had that kind of power and with that kind of ruthlessness. Again, he killed 20 million Russians. And it was, and Stalin, he wasn't the brains behind the outfit. He wasn't the brains of this glorious revolution. He just was a doer, dude. And so his size of situations like, I got the power. And that's all that counts. I don't really, Trotsky wanted to have keep the international revolution going on, and Stalin's like, no, we need to solidify what's going on here, solidify the revolution of Russia, so we don't lose ground, And so it just comes down. He's drunk up on it. Castro he didn't care about the revolution towards the end. I don't even think he cared about the revolution ever. He just cared about kicking out the old guy. He became the new guy, and he's like, I like it. I got the power. I like it. I'm not going to give it up. I'm not going to give freedom of the press to the people, and I'm not going to give freedom of arms to the people. Are you kidding me? If they had arms, they might do what I did, storm my palace and kill me. So I'll keep the guns to me and my friends. Thank you very much. And I'm going to rule this place. People talk about, well, if I had an island, I could make socialism work. Well, there it is. You look at, there's a guy. He had an island. He had an island, and he couldn't make it work. He limped along from the 60s all the way until the day he died because he became friends with the Soviets, with the Russians. He had what the Russians don't have. He had sugar and tobacco. And he was giving that all to the Russians, and the Russians would give him what he didn't have: grain and vodka and whatnot. It was his relationship with the Russians that kept him going. And my problem is I have an appointment that I've got to go to.
Okay.
So that's a lot of information. Next time we get together, we'll do the PowerPoint on the history of Israel from the beginning of time to now.
We will. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate you. Everybody, thanks so much for listening. And this is Embrace the Truth. Have a wonderful day and stay strong, everybody.
Bye-bye.